Okay, we're going to get started. You say the sound maybe now says it's 5:30 and we're now leaving. We can go ahead and do that. Welcome to the goal setting workshop and team training. ECISD School District. Glad that you are all here. Our first agenda item is called to order. Roll call. Mr. Daniels, please.
Mr. Del Rizzo. Present. Dr. Garza.
Here.
Mary Smalley.
Here.
Monique Presser. Ron Mastinga.
Here.
Mark Vanderpool.
Thank you. Item number 2, prayer and pledge.
Please stand and guide us for the prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for the leaders in this room. Lord, we pray that you will lead us and guide us and to help us make good decisions for the community. We ask that you will bless the food to the nourishment of our bodies and that you will see us home safely, Lord. We thank you for all the blessings that you give us every single day, and mostly for the blessing of being able to serve this community, Lord. We pray all these things in Christ's name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In Spanish, no. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. I would get more nervous when you're in the room and started to do this very
So, religious person. I thought you meant for Spanish.
That too.
All right, we're going to, we've got a couple of presentations tonight before we get into our goal setting and the things that will have an impact on our goal setting discussion tonight. Before we get involved in those, though, we do have something back here. So we'd like for everybody to grab something. We're going to do whatever it takes to get there.
Okay, trustees, Brett Alexander, partner from SDS School District Strategies. You may recall from about 3 years ago, our last demographic study prior to the 2016 bond program. This fall, as you're all aware, we commissioned a follow-up demographic study. The primary function of that is always to identify residential growth and development for the purposes of identifying those trends, enrollment projections, and those sorts of things. Obviously, there's more than that. So, in your miscellaneous package, you have the entire presentation, which I believe is about 60 slides, if I recall. I've asked Mr. Alexander to kind of give us an overview with the high points, and you can certainly follow along if you see anything that you want additional information about when you have to provide that. And then, of course, after today's presentation, which really is intended to start the conversation for goal setting purposes, we can definitely follow up and get more information for you and dive down a little deeper. Certainly. So, this time I'd like to turn it over to Brett.
Thank you, Mr. Toscano, President Brian, Board members. Good to see everyone again. Nice to be back here in Central. As Mr. Toscano said, I have an overview of our 2018-19 demographic study. What I want to start with are the latest overall population and household projection numbers for the district. We get these from our national data source. These are really your 30,000 numbers here, just overall demographics in the district. So you can see there in the upper left chart, almost 57,000 people live in the district today, just under 19,000 total households. Over the last 3 years, that's up about 11%. If you go back to the 2010 census, both population and household increased about 25%. So the general average for the last 8 years is about 3% for the overall population and household growth in the district. Okay, so what you see here are the total enrollment numbers for the 18-19 school year for all the districts in Greater San Antonio. This past fall, East Central ISD official enrollment was 10,025. That makes East Central the 10th largest district based on enrollment in Greater San Antonio. This slide shows the annual snapshot numbers, so from 2008 to 2018. So you can see that this year's official enrollment was actually a decline from where we were back in 2017. The last 2 years, enrollment has slowed down. We're going to look into that in more detail. But if you look at where the district's been since 2008, over the last 10 years, the district's grown by 947 students. Peaked in 2016, and that's in 2027. Here are the annualized year-over-year numbers. The numeric growth numbers are there on the top right chart. The percentage growth numbers in the bottom right. You can see that for 7 out of 8 years from 2008 to 2015, the district grew, averaging 1.5% annual growth. These last 2 years, enrollment's been flat and declining. I think the last 3 years, basically, we're looking at a flat growth path. Compare the growth to what's happening in the region overall. You can see that the net growth for East Central was 317 students over the last 3 years, or 5 years on this chart. That is the 10th most of any school district in the Greater Metro area. Now, you're probably wondering why have we dropped? So this chart shows the total number of students per attendance level in 2-year increments starting in 2008. Those navy blue bars on the far right are the 2018-19 numbers. So what's happened here in these last 2 years is that enrollment in K through 5 has dropped about 235 students over these last 2 years. At the same time, middle school and high school have seen their enrollment numbers begin to flatten out.
Correct, but it also showed pre-K and early childhood numbers have also grown.
Yes, so the upper levels of pre-K, yes, has grown up to 409 this past year. So when you look at the actual grade numbers, the historical grade numbers shown here in this slide, you can see there on the bottom left that circle that pre-K is at a record size at 49. But what's caused the decline here in the last couple of years is the loss of students in K through 4. You can see there in blue that since 2015, starting kindergarten and first grade, we've seen those numbers peaked in 2014 and have now fallen back to levels we haven't seen in quite some time. More on that in a minute, but at the same time, we see that 5th through 8th grade are seeing some of the largest numbers that you've ever had, including record 5th grade class, record 8th grade class, 9th grade is right there, the record size that it's been. And we also have your right at your closest near record class in 12th grade. So you might ask yourself, well, why is kindergarten, first grade falling? You might wonder, are we seeing a declining birth rate? Well, the answer to that is yes and no. You look at the blue line, those are the total births for the 4 zip codes that generally make up the geographic area encompassed by the district boundary. You can see that starting, note that those are moved 5 years forward, so we're looking at 2012 and 2007 births. So in 2007 through 2011, the birth numbers did decline. But since from 2011 to 2015, they've actually been growing. Well, the district had flat kindergarten enrollment for most of 2008 to 2015, and you see that kindergarten enrollment has gone down while the birth rate has gone up. So something else has happened over these last 2 years. The transfer report that the TDA puts out is really revealing to show what's impacted the district here over these last 2 years. When you're looking at these the bars in the chart, the blue line are students that live in another district and transferred in. The orange ones are based on students that live in East Central ISD that attend another public school or charter school. So as you can see there, since 2016, the district has seen an increase of 474 students that live in the district that attend elsewhere. Where are they going? On here, you can see the other public school districts that where these kids are at. In particular, right there in the middle of this line, San Antonio ISD has seen the number of students living in East Central grow from 117 to 252 over these last 3 or 4 years. So San Antonio ISD and their academy schools, one source that is taking kids. The district is also being impacted by charter school expansion, and you can see those numbers here on this slide. I will show you that, look at the top line of Brooks Academy, that number is going from 239 to 307, and the IDEA public schools is going from 62 to 296. Jubilee Academy is also up 75% students. So you can see just in the last 3 to 4 years, the number of kids going to the public charter schools has grown from 770 to 1220. And that is really what is behind the slowdown in enrollment. Because as I'm about to show you, the housing market is beginning to roar again, but they're not capturing as many of the kids from those new households. And they're also moving students from existing households into San Antonio. So as I said, the housing market continues to grow. These are the pre-owned sales in the district. The main thing to see here is the number of houses turning over continues to increase. You can read several things into that. I think the main thing is that it's a great time to sell your house. You can see the value in the bottom right. The value has gone from 186 to a lot. As the interest rates have stayed low, a lot of people are taking that opportunity to either move up to different ones. So you could also look at this and say people are leaving, but I think it's all of those things mixed together. I would say the number one thing to read out of this is that a lot of people are moving, but they may be moving within the district. The new home construction numbers are shown here on this slide. These come from our quarterly census. We drive the neighborhoods, we count the foundations as they're started, we count the houses that people move in. So you can see since 2015, since 2016, we've actually seen a 74% increase in new home construction in the district. That's with 624 starts and 566 move-ins in the 2018 calendar year. Also note the green bar, that is new lots delivered. So the builders and developers recognize the demand for homes here in the district, and they put a record 991 new lots on the ground to meet that demand just in 2018 alone. Now it's the most we've seen since 2007. Here are where those closings, when you look at all those school districts in San Antonio, where they occurred, East Central has seen 8 most. When you look at the last 3 calendar years, in 2018, the district had the 7th most. So again, a very, very strong demand here in the district. This led to the houses that are being built in subdivisions like Foster Meadows, Loma up on I-10, also Rico Sevilla, Parque Escondido, and South Ranch. So as you look through the list of top performers here, you'll see that the majority of them are in the traditional area attendance zone, and followed by the Sinclair attendance zone. When you look at the housing activity by middle school attendance zone, it's 50-50. But if you look at starts there in blue, you can see that we're seeing a gradual shift to where more are in the heritage middle school attendance zone. The types of homes that are being built are primarily entry-level and first move-up homes. Most of the homes are priced under $300,000. We have builders. We have the largest builder in the country here, working here with Express Homes neighborhoods, KB, LGI, others. Very strong entry-level builders here in the district. The The median new home price, $215,500 in 2018. That's up another 5%. That's a new record. But I still want you to recognize that that represents the starter home market today, in today's market. And if you look back on that chart, you can see how it's grown. Compared to resale, how much it's grown. So prices are higher, but it's still primarily targeting younger buyers for entry-level houses. Now, I talked about the 991 lots that were delivered in 2018. You can see a list of those actual subdivisions here. That meant that at the end of the year, there were 1,129 vacant developed lots left in inventory. Those are lots that are fully developed, waiting for a house to start. Coming behind those are another 326 lots. You can see the list there. But behind that are another 12,000 plus future lots of land. I'll show you some of those in the district here in a minute. But here are some photographs that we got over the last 2 quarters in the district. I would encourage you to look at the longer version of the report with more pictures in there. Just to show you what the most popular subdivision, Foster Meadows, continues to add sections to the neighborhood, as does Rivas Vita. And then when you move down to I-10, you have Paloma, and then towards the middle of the picture, you can see Milliken Road. Now, one of the things I want to point out is that when you look from this subdivision, you look back to the east, and you look all the way towards the boundary with Civil University City ISD, this land is shaping up to be one of your next generation of housing growth areas. This picture here shows what's going on in SCUC. This area started out as 690 platted lots in SCUC. It's now grown to almost 1,300, all down that, and all the way back towards 10. This is from Adder Road to 10. Well, there's another 6,500 lots in the east central side. That land there in the upper left. And this picture is from January. If you go out there now, you'll see the first 225 lots are in development in the subdivision that's just west of Heather's Place on the north side of the road. So that's the beginning of these subdivisions that include the list there. Another master plan, Paloma 2, this Graytown tract, and then the Frudenberg tract of 4,000 lots. So here, Horton Lamar, good builders are interested in building on these lots. So that's where a lot of the next 3 to 10 years out, even 15 years out, it's going to go here. In addition to that, back in January, your Horton announced the acquisition of 1,000 acres in Elmendorf for a future 3,500 lot subdivision called the Ranch Division. So there's some different things on when this subdivision is going to get started. But Dearborn has acquired a lot of subdivisions around Texas that might seem far further out. That seems way out there, but they're bringing in their express home product and other brands into these types of neighborhoods. So what all this means when you have about 1,100 lots on the ground, you have 300 under development, 12,000 proposed, means that we're looking at these builders continue to produce at the rate that we've seen here in the recent years. You're looking at another 2,700 homes being built in the district over the next 5 years. That's an average of about 535 per year. And we could see over 5,700 homes built over the next 10 years. So what does that do to enrollment? Well, our geocoding shows that a typical single-family house in the district yields about 0.58 students per home. And that's down a little bit from where we were 3 years ago, 0.63. Some of that decline can be explained with the students that have gone into the charters in San Antonio. But I think it's interesting when you look at these numbers that you can see in the Sinclair tenant zone, those neighborhoods now yield an above average yield. They're mostly in the 0.6s. But when you go and you look at the tradition tenant zone, the yields are half of that or lower. So it's going to take a lot more houses in the tradition zone to yield growth. It appears at the current time that the people that are buying in that area, that not all of those buyers are enrolling their kids. So they have, there's multiple options where they could become. But just know that there is a difference in the yield that we're seeing in the two main areas of housing development in the district. Apartment-wise, this year we see a 0.34 yield per unit. That is down just a little bit from where it was 3 years ago. Again, a result of some of the losses that we've seen over the last few years. So when you take the forecast, the yields, project out for each campus, the district projections are shown here on this slide. The blue line is a moderate scenario. It's essentially a 0.8 average growth. You can see the district projected flat is becoming by through next fall. That number could be a little bit higher depending on where 3K lands. And it's pretty conservative here, that's 380, but it potentially could be well over 400 if it does that. 10,000 kids. But we do think that it will be level and then gradually increase as these new neighborhoods come online in the next 3 to 10 years. Now, the district continues to see the existing population being erode from charter expansion, and the green line has more, is more valid. So the green line takes into effect that based on seeing those large classes that are fifth grade and then move out when you're averaging 615 classes in K-2 versus over 800 a class in those larger grades. So it's going to take it a while for growth to bring those back up to the level and accelerate beyond where we want to take just about 10,000 students. Now, how does that look compared to the district's capacity? This slide shows you the 3, 5, and 10-year enrollment projections under the minor scenario. The graph against the functional and the max capacity of the attendance level. So you can see that the district does have capacity to handle the growth under the moderate scenario for each of the max numbers. Functional, as you get into that 5 to 10 years out, the elementary will get closer to those numbers. But as we look at it today, we should have the capacity to handle the majority of the growth that's coming here in the immediate future. The campus projections are shown on these next two slides. If anyone has any questions about these, I'm happy to answer. But that's generally where we are today. Enrollment just about 10,000 students. But as you can see, the demand for new housing is very strong. But it's yielding a higher number of kids in more of the central areas of the district as opposed to the I-10 corridor. A lot of interest, a lot of focus from the building community will be on the I-10 corridor in the coming years. And then as well as the only corridor. Potentially here in 3 to 5 years, you can have 3 areas that are active with the Sinclair area probably being shrinking as those do. All right, that's a lot covered quick amount of time, so I won't answer any questions.
Board doesn't have any more questions. Thank you, Brett. Yeah, a few comments as we queue up the next presentation, the next couple slides. So a couple comments, trustees. You did notice the growth in pre-K. You know that one of our strategies has been to add early childhood centers to make pre-K available in all of our neighborhood elementary schools. And we've been partnering with pre-K for SA the last 2 years to build those out. So we are happy that we'll be able to see growth in the enrollment of our youngest students. Secondly, with regard to charter expansion, the challenge is, as you know, when you go through a demographic study, you start looking at housing development, you start projecting enrollment, as we did prior to 2016 bond. you don't know, we don't know whether charters are going to be built in the district or in our community, overlapping our school boundaries anytime during that window. And so Tuesday, I was in Austin for 11 hours testifying on several bills that have been filed for a little more deliberate process for requirements that charter schools notify local communities that they're going to build it in advance, with the intention of the size of the enrollment capacity, the grade levels they'll be serving, and any special programs that they be offering, so that we can plan accordingly. Charters are very resistant to that, because it's one of their strategies, shock and all surprise, to be able to sneak into a community and capture some enrollment. But with regard to the fact that taxpayer dollars fund both public school systems, we just need to know good information so that we can be very efficient with taxpayer dollars. And so we're optimistic that some of those bills will have some momentum. What they do require is for a school district, gives a school district's board a window of 60 days once notified to do an assessment of impact, projected impact, submit that to the commissioner, and then the commissioner has to study that situation in the local community, and then provide a report of its findings, and subsequently then decide whether we approve that charter expansion or not, because the goal is to not oversaturate communities where you have a school like Jubilee right across the street from Salado, because it's just not efficient use of taxpayer dollars. So that's one issue. The other is you get school districts like ECISD who have aggressively partnered with charters as a strategy to gain enrollment, and one thing that they've done is open up their school boundaries. So there are no requirements to live in SISD to go to SISD schools. We currently, as many other, most other public school districts in the city and city extended, do not have that open enrollment option, unless in special circumstances per board policy. So I'm not suggesting that that's something we want to do right now, but we need to keep that on our radar. If this begins to be an issue for us, it's something that we as a community may consider as a possibility. Having said that, we also know that we've strategized to create some options that some charter schools have offered that seem to be appealing to some families. One of which is the Leadership Academy we're piloting next year at Salado. It's open enrollment to any child in our school community that offers something a little different pre-K-5 than any other pre-K-5 in our system. It's an opportunity for us to use that as a laboratory, try some things we've been eager to try to see if they have the impact that we hope, and if they do, we can scale those kinds of programs across all of our elementary schools. But as a result, we've seen some interest from all over the city, all over our school boundaries for students interested in that Leadership Academy option. We've also created an East and West pre-K to 5 dual language academy. Those are also very appealing to families that might otherwise consider other options. I also want to point out, I hope you caught that there's some areas where you're seeing more residential development and prospective enrollment, student enrollment impact. And they're in the areas of Tradition Elementary, Sinclair Elementary, and Harmony Elementary, which is fantastic because that's the exact reason why we adjusted the boundaries over the last few years that we did. Also, is we adjusted the arrangement to now pre-K-5 community schools so that those three schools happen to have the most room for increased enrollment. That matches with the residential development that was presented today from Brett Alexander. So I think that information that we utilize to make those decisions is proven to be true, and it continues to seem that it's going to be true in the future. So we're able to accommodate any new growth without the need for new facilities. All right. So one other strategy along the same lines of being innovative is we have been working with an organization here in town, and they'll talk a little bit more about who they are in a minute. But the intent is to create some innovative options for K-12 experiences. And so they're called the CAS Network of Schools, Center for Applied Science and Technology. And their mission is to partner with school districts and business and industry to create school experiences that are relevant and aligned to the workforce needs in the city of San Antonio. we know, and we'll talk more specifically about that, later, one of our core business missions has always been to ensure that our kids leave not only academically prepared, but that they're employable. So in alignment with that mission, we've been in ongoing conversations for a couple of years with the CAS Network. We have since launched several campuses across the city. The latest will be opening up the Brooks City base. It's called CASMed. And it's a partnership between ECISD, Carnegie Word, and I believe the Baptist system. And in all of these schools, there's an option for our students to attend, but also an option for students from outside our borders to attend and have an experience that is really aligned to the workforce needs, partnered with high demand industries in the city, and there's some really, really great potential here. And so I wanted them to come visit with you guys tonight and kind of share a concept that we see is still a need in our city. It would be a great fit here in our community. And so it's just for your consideration. And so at this time, I'd like to start with our own Director of Career and Technology, Amanda Holman, to present the conversation. And then we'll kick it over to Kate Rogers and Gene Russell from CAST to round it out. So.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight to talk about this. I do want, as we just kind of said, we've got Gene Russell, who is the project manager with CAST Schools, and then Kate Rogers, who is the president of the board for CAST Schools. So I'm going to kind of go through the proposal that we have generated for you guys, and then allow Ms. Russell and Ms. Rogers to answer any questions that you guys have, provide any other input that they feel necessary. So in your packet, you will have a proposal for CAST School information and a timeline as well. So I'm going to be going off of that information for the most part. As Mr. Toscano mentioned, there is a CAST STEM school that is located at Southwest High School that opened recently. CAST Med is opening in the fall, and then CAST Tech has been the longest running CAST school now, and that is was their flagship, and that is at Southwest High School. So they do have 3 campuses in San Antonio already that are very successful, or soon to be considered very successful. And the main goal of the CAST programs or the CAST school network is to incorporate project-based learning, which is what we're focusing on at our Leadership Academy, and combining business and industry partners, college, possibly college credits and college hours, along with a cross-curricular model that allows our students who are enrolled in current technical education programs to learn their content through the lens, learn their core content through the lens of their current program. So what we have are 3 proposed pathways that would take place at this campus. We're proposing retail leadership, hospitality and tourism leadership, and e-commerce leadership. And so you'll see that these are 3 areas that San Antonio has a very good reputation for. We have a lot of large organizations and businesses in the San Antonio area that support these industries. And when we talk to these industries, you hear from them that they have a very high need for employees to come into their facilities and be working with them. So you'll see that we have some proposed business partnerships that we would like to pursue if this is the board to go forward with this proposal. We would look at distinctive San Antonio brands, obviously companies like HEB, USAA, those are all very distinctive organizations within the San Antonio area. Whataburger, the Culinary Institute of America has a campus here in San Antonio as well. The Hotel Emma is a very well-known, very high-class hotel in San Antonio that we would want to partner with. Obviously, Visit San Antonio, the hospitality and tourism, San Antonio Chamber of Commerce and such. Local celebrity chefs, Chef Johnny Fernandez does a lot of work in the education field. So these are just some ideas that we've had that partnering with CAST would allow us to bring in some of these businesses and industries. So I want to talk for just a second about some of these proposed programs, and I'll start with retail leadership. And in your packet, you do have a brief description of each of those, along with what that course pathway or the comprehensive of courses would look like for our students in the fall.
In the folder?
Yes. And then you'll also have some career information that was collected through Texas Workforce Commission and the Labor Market and Career Information. So the retail leadership, obviously retail leadership is a huge crucial part of any brick and mortar organization. So the goal with this pathway would be for our students to be able to explore retail management. You'll find a lot of times that with any retail scenario, students may go into that in a entry-level position, but they may not always acquire or have the skills to allow them to move up into leadership positions. And so some of the companies that we've been speaking with have indicated to us that they're having a very hard time finding people to come into their organizations at a leadership level or to move up within that. And so organizations like HEB, for instance, have created their School of Retail Leadership where they try to grow their individuals from within. Because the population of people that's available to do that coming into the company may not always be available. So this would focus on not necessarily hiring or generating students in a workforce to go into, say, a clothing store and hang clothes on the racks and be a cashier, but rather they would be the people who are managing the resources, managing the other individuals, their training schedules, things sorts of things. So when you look down at the proposed pathway, what we've strived to do with this model is to look at all of our programs that would traditionally teach just a regular content area. So for instance, business management. The students in business management, they may learn about marketing and finance, but they're not going to learn probably how to directly apply it to a specific career field. And that's going to be the difference that we'll be doing with the FAST programs. So you would see that students in their freshman year would take principles of BSMF or business marketing and finance. We would then move them into human resource management and advertising, so they're learning from business professionals how to manage individuals and advertise. Digital media is a huge piece of everything we do in retail, right? So we've got to make sure that our students are becoming proficient in that. We look at business management, distribution and logistics. Again, when we look at current tech ed programs, distribution and logistics is huge to a retail organization. But we're not training our students. It's a totally separate pathway as they're currently designed in the state of Texas. So we would be bringing in some of these programs and other pathways to assist as well. Again, social media marketing, global business, and then we would culminate each of these pathways with a practicum in that area that allows our students to actually go out into the real world and work on site with these individuals and these companies and organizations to really build their strengths, build their resumes, and have them absolutely proficient when we send them off. So I do want to bring up, down at the bottom of the school information, we've added some possible careers along with the information from Texas Workforce Commission. And that's going to be for each one of our programs that we've generated. So for instance, here you'll see the careers, fashion, food, retail leadership. We've identified the soft code, which is what's tracked across the country really, with the Department of Labor and Statistics and also with Texas Workforce Commission. Texas Workforce Commission provides some information for us on projected openings through 2026. And so you'll see that just that specific piece there for fashion and food retail, we're looking at in our area, so this is only in the Alamo workforce area, they're projecting an opening by 2026 of 12,725 openings in that area. And so that's a huge need that we would be able to help fill here in ECISD. The earning potential as well, you see that we listed the earning potentials because I think it's important for us to realize that these are not minimum wage jobs anymore. These are jobs that are, the earning potential is $55,000 for someone going into that field. And then it also lists the current employment. So you can see that there's a rise in employment of about 3,000 positions that will be open again between now and 2026. So we did include that data for each one of the fields for you. The next one that I would like to discuss with you is our hospitality and tourism. Traditionally, here at Central ISD, our hospitality and tourism field has been primarily the culinary track for students. It's a very large program, and our students really enjoy that. They're very successful. But what we're finding is that hospitality and tourism in San Antonio is much larger than the culinary industry. So what we've done is look at an industry that generates usually around $14 billion a year in the area, and taken all of the sectors that it spans. So things like food and beverage, travel and tourism, lodging and recreation. We would allow our students to explore each of those areas and choose a sector that really suits their post-secondary goals. We would look at things through the lens, again, of the travel and tourism, culinary, hotel management, hospitality services. Again, we would culminate with that practical experience in one of our many areas in San Antonio that focuses on hospitality and tourism. So some of those areas would be sports management, entertainment, venue management, event planning, convention planning, catering, hotel management, and all of the services that come along with that. We don't traditionally think about those. Someone has to manage the housekeeping staff and the maintenance staff at a hotel, especially the large ones like we have downtown. So the pathway for that would include the principles of hospitality and tourism class. We would go into travel and tourism management, sports and entertainment marketing, introduction to culinary arts for specifically for hospitality and tourism leadership, hotel management, business management, and hospitality services. The unique thing about this is that it'll take some opportunities for, it'll give students some of our students some opportunities to explore things like the food and beverage industry. When you think about that, that's not traditionally something we would teach our students about in a regular culinary classroom in school. However, if they got into something like venue management or anything like that, they would be responsible for ordering beverages, ordering food, understanding how those numbers work, how to return a profit, and those sorts of things. So we would be essentially, again, combining that hospitality and tourism cluster that we have along with the business cluster and marketing.
Right here, there's a hole.
The last one that I wanted to share with you
Yeah,
is probably one that I'm most excited about all of these, but
There's a hole.
our e-commerce leadership. We have a very strong program in IT, cybersecurity, and it's a growing program in cybersecurity, but computer science as well. But again, we fall into that same routine with the way that we've aligned our pathways in Career Tech Ed, that our students are becoming very proficient in the technical skill, but not in the people skill of working with individuals in that field. And so what we've done is taken this cybersecurity, e-commerce field and said, how can we make that something that our students can really benefit from a little bit more in our local area? So this is a rapid evolving industry. Things that were not existent 3 years ago are now huge professions in the area. One of these, something that's really coming up lately is these omni-channel experiences. So for instance, you got things like Amazon, you get everything through it, right? You can get all your groceries, you can get your clothes, everything through it. Your movie channels, your radio now, anything. So we've seen a need now to start training our students in how to operate those types of platforms. The e-commerce pathway will take our students from face-to-face platform to a virtual platform for sales and services to their customers. We also talk about user interface experiences as well. Our students are doing great jobs of learning how to generate apps or video games or programs. But when it actually comes to them being utilized, our students don't get that training because we don't have a method of pushing this out to the business, whereas this would allow us to do that. This does allow our students to go out to a global marketplace, whereas right now we're tied to the San Antonio area. This e-commerce platform would allow our students to be global. We will also incorporate in, obviously, in any part of e-commerce, cybersecurity is crucial, and security analytics, just because you're getting your credit card information, which applies things a lot of times. So that's going to be a huge piece of what we incorporate into that program. So on the last page, if you look at the very back, just going through some of those pathways with you, the course with you, we would incorporate this. I do want to be upfront with you. This is a little bit of a changing model at the time because TEA is in the process of developing a cybersecurity pathway, which could impact some of those courses as well. So right now you'll see some question marks and things in different colors, and that's simply because that is kind of evolving with TEA as we speak. So we would incorporate digital media, web technologies, principles of cybersecurity, social media marketing, global business, and then of course that practical business management with an emphasis in e-commerce. So again, the information on the careers is there so that you can see what those are. Before I move into the timeline, are there any questions about the pathways that are being taken?
So are these electives on top of?
Yes, sir. So they are, they would still be considered part of the student's endorsement. So at Central High School, we try to graduate every student with an endorsement. And so on the foundation graduation plan with endorsement. And so this would directly correspond to their endorsement. So we would, students would go through this program of study, and that would end up as their endorsement, whether it be business industry or STEM.
So what would happen if a student goes to one pathway and does not like it or isn't for them? Would they be given an option to, if it's not too late, I guess in the program, would they be given an option to move to another?
I would venture to say they would. I'm not sure if Kate and maybe Jean would have some experience with how that's worked. Some of the current schools.
So I think at some of the current campuses, what we try to do is during the 9th grade year, do a really good job of exposing the kids to the different, what do these pathways really mean? What are you going to be doing? And that includes, site visits to industry, having guest speakers come in, so they get a better sense of what it is they would be studying before they make a choice. But of course, at any time, if it's not a good fit, they have the option, just like they do with any endorsement. But I think your question is a very good one, which essentially all this does is take their electives in high school and stack them so that they get hopefully both an industry recognized credential as well as college credit before they graduate.
So do you have anything in this overall program designed to push the investigation of programs down further into where you don't have to wait until the 9th grade for them to begin looking at these things and then all of a sudden putting together a decision?
Yes.
They're able to do that a little bit further down the road.
Yes, so we actually, we've been implementing several different things in the last couple of years to really push our current and programs, and really all of our endorsement education into those grade levels, as far as kindergarten. This is the first year district-wide that we'll have a STEAM or science, technology, engineering, and math fair, and a career fair at every single campus district-wide that's an elementary campus. So we're really proud of that, we're really excited about it. And that's just kind of one of those layers that we've been adding on to really push our college career readiness down to kinder and pre-K. So we do have a college career readiness class at the middle schools where they spend the entire year surveying all these programs with their students to help them make informed decisions before they get into high school. So that would be another piece as well. We would incorporate these into that coursework, just like we do with our other.
So that was my question, an emphasis on these in this area.
Yes, we do. All right, so the next page that's in the cast packet that we have here is a timeline. And I'm going to go through this briefly, and then I'd also like for Kate and Jean to be able to answer any questions that you guys have about it. And the proposed timeline here would be that this spring, 2019, we would present this CAS plan to the school board. If the plan is accepted or we choose to move forward with exploring these options, the goal would be that later this spring we would look at hiring the high school principal that would serve in this capacity, as well as a second individual, which the CAS networks highly recommends that be someone who corresponds directly with business and industry, so liaison for us to start building all of our partnerships and really building a strong foundation with it. In the fall of 2019, we would have a building year for us, or a development year. So the fall 2019 is when we would, it's summer. So we'll be looking at developing our advisory committee for pulling in the business and industry professionals that will serve on our advisory committee for us in the summer. Work on design teamwork. We would start to tour some other campuses, specifically here in San Antonio and other areas, to see what their programs are looking like, what we can do to maximize these experiences for our students. And then we would go into that design phase. So the 2019 fall would look like recruitment of our inaugural class of 9th graders. We would start with a 9th grade class, and then we would hire a cohort of teachers to serve in that capacity for those 9th graders. Moving into the winter, we would look at our first CAS lead, having our students and families notified that they'll be accepted, and then beginning some of our signing nights for those students, really welcoming them with open arms into our CAS lead school. We would have a summer bridge program for those 9th graders the following summer, and then very extensive professional development for our teachers to ensure that they are very knowledgeable about the model of CAS schools and how what the expectation would be for the level of education students receive. The goal would be to open in August of 2020 with approximately 120 students. We do prefer to get closer to 150, but we want to make sure that we're able to leave room for students to move up through that peer cohorts. The proposed initial home for this campus would be the John Glenn Annex across from the high school. That is being right now renovated to house a lot of the current technical education programs, and so we said that would be a perfect fit for this area for the time being.
In addition to that, the thought is if we move this direction, we saw we're not looking at significant projected enrollment growth in the high school, but very moderate. We would essentially be shifting seats onto that. And while at the same time possibly bringing in new enrollment out of interest. But we would start at the John Glenn Annex, we would build out the first cohort, the second cohort. We know that there's room for about 500 high school kids there. And if it's successful, we continue moving forward, we'd be able to put the third and fourth cohort, whether that's ninth graders or juniors and seniors, ninth and 10th or junior seniors, we haven't obviously really got that far down the line. But we use South Campus. So South Campus and when built out, South Campus and John Glenn Annex would be East Central High School, Cascade. Right? So we've got the facility to accommodate, we've got the space, not only for the students that are here now, but room to grow, definitely to meet the projections of the Monterford Plus. And so we feel like for those reasons, this is a good consideration.
Did we on here about 822? What was that?
Yeah, so we might allow Kate to
Yeah,
talk a little bit
absolutely,
about the any startup grant or 1882 possibilities. Of course, I believe that 1882, that's something we need to talk about down the road if we continue to move down this path. You guys want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I, just by way of introduction, so I've spent most of my career at HEB, 18 years with the company, and I work for the Charles Button Foundation. So just as a brief history of sort of where the CAS network came from, several years ago, Charles wanted to build a single center for the city of San Antonio that would house career and tech, similar to the Byron Martin Center in Lubbock. But Lubbock is a much smaller community than San Antonio, much less diverse. And so we brought a consultant in from Georgia, and basically the premise was you don't need just one, you need multiple campuses across the city that serve kids in all different ways. And so that's kind of where the CAS network was born from. So when a new school enters the network, we, the foundation and HEB, do provide some startup funding that has hovered around $2 million per campus. For CAS Tech, it was a little bit more than that because we were renovating a very old building that used to house what was career and tech when I was in high school, which was like, woodworking and auto shop. That was all we had. And that on the Fox Texas campus. So that was an expensive endeavor, so we gave a little bit more to that school. What you see listed on here are options for the board to consider. So we have 2 schools in SISD today who are in-district charters. So what does that mean? Essentially, for us, all that means is that your industry advisory group has a role in the selection of the principal for the school. So we've had industry folks who participate in the interview process, etc. And why is that beneficial? Well, we think it's because industry looks for different things in a principal, and the idea behind these schools is that the relationship with industry is sort of unprecedented. So our industry advisors don't just like come to a meeting and then walk away, right? They're on the campuses all the time. They help develop curriculum. They help donate equipment to labs when needed because they're looking at this as their future workforce. So everyone from Holt Cats and Toyota to Rackspace, they're very involved in the campuses. And that's one of our obligations as the network is to help bring those business relationships to the table. So you have 2 options, right? Now our school in Southwest ISD is not an in-district charter. But when you go the in-district charter route, what it does open up for you is some opportunities for additional money from the state. So the state awards up to $800,000 in startup funding for an in-district charter. We do not, as a entity, we're a nonprofit organization. We don't have anything to do with employing teachers. We're not a traditional charter management organization, I should say. So whatever you've heard or read about what charter organizations do, that's not what we do. We're primarily focused on the industry and again, working with the leadership of the school. 1882, what that does is open up additional revenue per student. So you have access through 1882, which is a new piece of legislation, so everyone's still trying to figure it out. You have access to up to about $1,200 incremental per student enrolled in the school. And that helps to do things like provide extra stipends to teachers, because a lot of the teachers work longer than the traditional school year. They work longer hours to help kids with their internships and other things. It also provides for extra positions, like we have a mentor coordinator on all the campuses who works to place kids in internships and job shadow opportunities and is that liaison with industry. So that's how the incremental funding is used. But again, ECISD has chosen to go the route of in-district charter, and they do leverage the $1882 that both Cass Tech and Cass Med have applied for. $1882 Cass Tech has been accepted by TEA to receive those incremental dollars. But Southwest ISD is, that CASTEM is not an in-district charter. It operates currently at their new Legacy High School, but will move locations in the fall. So I hope that helps to clarify. It is a decision by the board. The only thing that I would ask that when you guys get to that point is, dig in, look at your options, understand the pros and cons of what you would be looking at before you make a decision, because you all need to feel comfortable about whatever that arrangement is.
Is HEB an advocate for charter schools?
Well, that's a great question. The simplistic answer to that is no.
No.
No. I mean, Mr. Butt has given money to some high-performing charter schools like KIPP in the past. But his heart and the company's heart has always been with the public schools. I mean, Charles attended public school, his mother was a teacher, so all of his personal philanthropy has been dedicated to public schools through Raise Your Hand Texas, the creation of the new Holsworth Center, which I've been serving as the president of for the last couple of years, which is a leadership institute focused solely on public school districts and their leaders. So that's really where his heart has always been, and that's such a controversial topic right now in the state, but I think what he always says is, but that's where the kids are. We serve 5.3 million kids in Texas, that's 10% of the nation's children. We have a huge responsibility to do right by those kids, and that's what happens in our public schools. And sometimes he stands alone in the philanthropic world in that sense. There's a lot of big donors out in the marketplace who give a lot of money to traditional charter expansion. The way I think about the CAS network, which I think Amanda and Mr. Tristano did a great job of alluding to, which is, education has become more competitive, right? I mean, I spent my life in retail grocery. It's real competitive, right? When Walmart opens up across the street, you're going to do everything you can to keep those customers in your store. And that's kind of what's been happening in the education world. And I applaud districts like East Central who are making innovative moves like the pre-K centers, like the dual language programs. Because if parents are saying we want choice options, I believe, and Mr. Butt believes, that the public schools are far better positioned to offer innovative solutions. And I've seen that in my journeys over the last several years. I've never seen an integrated dual language arts program at a charter school, but I have in a public school. And I think that's, so we think of the CAS network and the schools in SIC, what they see, so who comes to those schools? We see kids coming back from charters into those schools, because SISD has a more significant problem than any other district in the city when it comes to declining enrollment. Right, they've lost 5,000 children in the last, 5 years or so. I mean, it's dramatic. So they've got to be creative about how they get those families back. And so that's the way I think about it. There are some kids who were homeschooled. There are some kids who even come from private school. And they all come back. So either it's kids, and again, it's primarily kids who are living in the district, but we're choosing something else for whatever reason. And so that's the way we think about these schools.
Those schools, those teachers required to be certified.
Oh, yes. Now, well, I say that, there's one exception to that. So like, for an industry class, like for example, this morning we were having a good discussion with Toyota about the advanced manufacturing class at Cass STEM, right? And so there's a lab course that's certified by the state, but it's okay for an industry professional to come in and teach that class. So we were looking, the conversation was, could we find a retired person or a near retirement person from Toyota who could actually come in and teach the students how to operate the robotic equipment? So in a situation like that, they do not have to be a certified teacher. But all your core subjects, math, science, the kids all still have to meet their high school graduation requirements.
That's my next question.
Yeah.
Excuse me for a moment. So last month we were talking about district elimination and some of the options that we gave us. One was certification. We talked specifically about industry-related courses and how can we get the very best person in front of our kids. And would that person be somebody who's a technician, recently retired from Toyota, who worked on that equipment and did that job for their entire career? Or would it be somebody who got a CTE certification in the college education prep program and passed the test? Which one's going to be best in front of our kids? The DOI, that now the district has adopted, allows us to make that call. One other thing that we need to be thinking about with industry professionals, right? So I think about our CNA teacher, our health science tech teacher who helps kids get certified nursing assistant licenses. Well, she's been a nurse in the industry for 10 years prior to coming to education. We were fortunate enough to get her here, but she starts as a first-year teacher. And there's a huge difference in pay between a 10-year nurse and a first-year teacher. So one possibility to recruit those experienced industry professionals that might be the very best in front of our kids to teach these courses that align to industry sectors is to maybe provide some sort of stipend to bridge that gap, right? Just as a possibility.
Yes, I mean, I think that's spot on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions for us about the mechanics of this?
Well, I was just going to say, in light of what we just heard prior to your presentation about the ins and outs of children that are transferring out of the school and that, as kind of an aside, how will we market getting this information to parents that have middle school, I mean, you're not going to wait till they're ninth grade and share the information, and I realize the timeline is, but I was just wondering what kind of intensive type of outreach to let people know what's going on in the school.
It's a great question, and I think, so our funding of the nonprofit, and by our, I mean a combination of HEB and the foundation, our funding both provides these startup grants to the campuses, but we also operate the network, right? So we pay for Jean's time, and they're what we consider network expenses. So that includes professional development. So if we're going to bring in the best of the best project-based learning person like the Buck Institute, we're going to send all of our teachers from all of the CAS schools and the principals through that program. So PD is part of that. Summer Bridge programs are part of that. Partnerships with the local universities. So with both UTSA and Texas A&M, we actually have pre-service teachers. So these are people who are studying to become a teacher, who work on the campuses under the teachers there, provide extra support for the kiddos. So they're considered lab schools and that, and the network pays for that. But most importantly, the network pays for marketing. So we hire a marketing firm, we do traditional tactics. We do social media, we'll do billboards, we'll do street banners, like whatever we need to do to try to get the families out. And we like to work very closely with our schools because you all will know far better than we do, if there's a particular neighborhood, for example, in your district where you've seen a lot of the kids peel off to go to a specific charter, we can actually target, those families to try to pull them back, because, a lot of times you'll find that by the time that the families get to middle and high school, they can become quite dissatisfied with the charter experience. They might be scared of sending their students back to, a big comprehensive high school, just depending on the child. And so this provides like a great alternative to try and pull them back in.
When we talked earlier a little bit about the dual credits and the dual credit possibilities here, and you alluded to bringing in prospective teachers from the institutions. What have we done to talk to the local schools about making sure that these classes will lead to credit?
As far as local colleges and universities? So, I see that the conversation hasn't started yet. We didn't want to step out outside of our realm of authority, I guess. We obviously like to have your permission before we move forward with anything. So, I think that we have identified a lot of, I say a lot of, I would envision about 3 campuses in San Antonio that have programs that benefit our students. One of those, Conrad Hilton has a school of hospitality and tourism downtown, and that's part of the University of Houston. And so in some of our very early discussions about this, we definitely brought that up as a possibility to partner with. We currently do have some partnership agreements with St. Philip's College and their culinary and hospitality and tourism instructors. A couple of our instructors now are qualified to teach dual credit should that become an option that's viable for students. So those are definitely some opportunities as well. And then reaching out to some of the business programs in the area to see what we can do for students as far as business type courses is definitely an option. The good thing about our career and physical education programs is that, especially bringing in industry professionals, we would have an opportunity to expand on that. In a lot of our courses, we don't necessarily realize it up front, but a lot of our courses are very much aligned with specifically community college credit or like Alamo college credit. And so that's where we're seeing a lot of our programs right now.
I would just piggyback what Amanda's saying, which is part of that, once the industry advisory committee is formed, the committee also includes representation from Alamo colleges, from UTSA, and from Texas A&M. Because our goal is to make sure that the goal is for any student to graduate from a CAS school with a minimum of 30 college credit hours. And so by starting in 9th grade, we have enough time to map the curriculum and the scope and sequence according to what's written from TEA versus what's offered at the college level, and help to bridge that, which sometimes can be quite tedious, but it's where the rubber meets the road. So that's kind of what we hope to bring to the table.
And that's not excluding core content full credit either. We offer some core credit, core content full credit for students. So I think that that's always going to be an option for the students. But I think we're going to see some innovation happening with those current courses that we do.
How do we settle on these areas?
That's a great question, because we have a lot of, we were really kind of looking around, and obviously we did not want to be in competition with other CAS schools in the network, but rather work in collaboration with them. So that was allowed us to kind of whittle down some of the areas that we had looked at. And I meeting with Jean and some of the ideas. She works very closely with those business industry partners, and just some things that they had heard. The CAS network, from my understanding, which please correct me if I'm wrong, they had an interest in looking at some type of retail partnership as well as leadership and merging those. And so just as the discussions kind of happened and we were talking, these 3 programs kind of evolved just through discussions. But I'll let you.
The only other thing I would add is I think that the e-commerce piece is really interesting to us because there's no other program like it in our community. And in all of our schools, we're trying to embed this sort of fundamental computational literacy that we know is so necessary, and we think maybe is about closing the achievement gap as well. And so each of our schools wow, they have a, like a coach who might say med, you don't think that's about computer science, we're really embedding computer science across all of them, and so we thought that was a really interesting nice fit. And then we also talked about building on your strengths. So you have an extremely successful culinary program, but was there a way to really make it, to really push that so that kids were, I feel like probably the end of the pool. So that was sort of where we
I think too, I'd like to add that we also considered when we talk about the retail management piece, we, personal research realized that the only college in Texas that really offers any type of retail leadership post-secondary schooling is at Texas Tech, and that's the 10 hours away from driving and go, and so, that could also be, even though they are distant from us, that could be another opportunity for partnership. But our students that are here locally, if they're not in a situation where they're able to move to an area like that to go to school, this would provide them with some of that training and education and still be successful in that field, especially when we have such large companies in San Antonio that their business is retail and we can't provide enough staffing for them now, so they're going outside.
With regard to these three programs, you gave an example earlier, one of the career paths, possibilities and available job openings between now and 2026 postings and the earning potential, et cetera. I know that we also took a look at those reports and kind of tried to align these programs with jobs that were going to be available that were also not minimum wage jobs, right? So I know you didn't give every example or several examples across all three areas, but to the question, we landed on it because there's not any other programs like it. We tapped into our own strengths, but also there's a need in the local economy that is not being met, and it's middle skill, high wage, with no lid on opportunity to advance in upper management leadership, the need, if you will. So that's kind of how we got here.
All going on to keep them, no. That's a great answer, okay, because I would much rather have that kind of an answer than these are the things that people think is going to happen in the future, okay? It's here now, and it's going to grow, and it builds to our strength, and it's a great place for us to be, rather than someplace that sounds really neat, that's misguiding all of those times. So that's great. You talked a little bit about kids coming out of the program with hours. I will tell you from some personal experience recently that the students who go to a four-year institution who have an extensive number of hours coming out of high school have a problem getting classes at that school because the people that they would be competing for with those classes have already been allowed to register. Those classes are gone. And there have been some cases where the kids couldn't even find enough full-time hours to be a full-time student. So is there any way that we can partner with some of the local schools that we're talking about to give our kids an advantage in that registration process so that they get into that early as well? Get it early to a school. Let's get them into the registration process early.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that's something we are very aware of and have been working on, and we're probably our closest partner is UTSA. So we're even having conversations with them about like early enrollment, co-enrollment, enrollment in the honors college for some of these kids while they're still in high school. So they're very open to that.
Yeah.
They recognize that there is a pool of students in their own community that are doing really well, that are looking at other places, so that if the more they can do what they call like downward expansion and really pull these kids up, the more successful they're going to be. So it's a partnership that benefits them as well. So we are definitely in the, we're talking to A&M as well, but UTSA is where we're the furthest along. But the other thing we're trying to do is look at each of these pathways back to Amanda's point and see where is the higher education partner that has the best program, and let's make sure our kids are really aligned with that program, even if it is at Tech or A&M. To know that they can get into that program, say as a junior, and get all the credits counted. So we're having those kind of conversations as well.
So I sat in an auditorium in College Station 2 years ago
College Station
with
is the
800
worst.
kids.
Well, you can always
And at the end of that session, the kids who they had stay, who couldn't find their classes,
Yeah, it's terrible.
was probably 300.
Yeah, no, it's really bad. I mean, the flagships are the hardest,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
But we're working on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
So next step would be, obviously no action's going to take. But if we got a nod of approval, they can begin doing some state work. And we'd be able to come back to the board, do a superintendent report, the next regular meeting, or actually we could probably wait till May and give ourselves some time to do state work. It would come back with kind of the potential partnership interest from industry, kind of maybe some more definitive information about the reality of launching something like this. And if it's amenable to the board at that point, then we would start to move to build that industry advisory committee, seek out hiring a principal, and begin that year of planning in anticipation of building that first cohort. All the marketing and recruiting and messaging and all that comes with it, building out programs of study, partnerships with not only industry but higher ed, et cetera, and staffing implications, so that in the fall of 2021, we're launching with that first cohort. So at least for now, we need about a month to kind of start getting more definitives, bring that back to the board in about a month, get some direction from you guys. If it's a go, we start finding principal, advisory board, facility that advisory board first, then principal, then plan for a year, keep you abreast along the way, and then launch in 2021. Am I accurate on all that?
I think it'd be 2020.
2020,
Yes,
2021.
fall of 2020.
2020, 2021 school year.
Yes,
Okay.
So,
I know you mentioned, are we gonna house this school? I know you mentioned that.
John Glenn Annex, and eventually, as we grow out past the first two cohorts, South Campus.
I think it's an exciting concept, it is to me. Having been a late in life learner, okay, having to start your career and then catch up with your education, to be able to have the earning potential and not just a job, but vocation. Can you fold some of this into the discussions we're going to have?
Yes, sir.
As we move forward tonight, and show us how that moves, and then I think we'll get some head nodding tonight, and we can move forward in that fashion. Is that okay with everybody?
Quick question, when would we get this out to the community? From the past meeting, I would like to have it out there, but obviously at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, we got to prove it first.
Right.
We got to get a plan. And, you know, it sounds to me like some of this would be late summer, possibly. Yeah.
So in terms of messaging and all of those sorts of things, we would rely on the expertise of marketing and all that comes from the CAS network. So, I mean, I don't know if we can speak to that a little bit now, but I think we would have the finest of the finest professional organization to help us with that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, we help you with the announcement, with all of that, so the community felt involved, engaged, and excited about the opening of the school.
One more question, Mr. Cheetah. Before we would put a staff in place to read out the number of kids that are in these programs,
Absolutely.
we gotta do that first before we put a staff in place.
Absolutely. Much of the staff would be our current staff.
Current staff.
Yes, sir. Not all necessarily, depending on the specific programs. There may be some programs, there may be some courses we end up offering that we don't currently offer and we would need the staff for, but we're not talking about a complete new staff necessarily in addition to the current high school staff as well.
So the staff would be based on
The enrollment numbers.
into the program.
So we would certainly have a targeted population, 120 to 150 for that first cohort. In that entire year of planning and messaging and recruiting and all of that sort of thing, we would be intending on hitting that number. And if we had 120, obviously we would staff differently than if we had 150. Differently than if we only had given that you've opened 3 schools, has filling a cohort been an issue thus far?
No, it has not been an issue. For this year, we've averaged about 400 applications for 150 spots. And SAIC is a little more complicated because of their centralized enrollment process, but we don't need to worry about that.
Am I correct in saying, I think Jamie had discussed that typically for that number of students, it's approximately 8 staff members?
For 150 it is, and we can talk through the staffing model, and I think if you guys have the capacity, we should just sort of think through what the right number is and the right number of staffing, and settle on that number, and that's what we'll work through. We've learned a lot about like how many we should accept for attrition and all those things, but we'll share all those lessons with you.
So in our model, are we talking about starting with a cohort of just 9th graders, and then next year we have 9th and 10th?
Yes,
Okay, so we're starting with just the 9th graders, and they're only going to be dealing with this 9th grade class, this principal class, principals of in most cases, and so it doesn't appear to me that that's going to be a huge increase in staff. And again, you know, when you talk about the e-commerce, information technology, or computer science, we already have that in our CTE program. So I'm thinking a little different model that you might have to bring some other people in. But, I'm curious.
I have no question. This program would be open up to anybody in the city, or just ECISD?
So different districts have set their thresholds. In SAISD, it is mandated that it has to be at least 50% of children from the district,
Okay.
but they can accept up to 50% from outside of the district. That's a discussion that you all will have to have. In Southwest ISD, because of their geography, it ends up being 80% Southwest ISD students and about 20% come from outside of the area, just because it's a harder place to get to.
Right. Another question, okay, so if we have students outside of East Central School District, how does that affect them for UIL and sports complex recreation?
Great.
How does that affect them?
One year, they have a 1 year that they cannot play on the varsity team typically. And just to add to the out-of-district conversation, another factor in that we believe the biggest barrier for the Southwest kids has been transportation. That's what we've heard from people coming to Southwest. So part of that might depend on what sort of transportation, if any, you all have, like from within your district. So one of the things SASD does is it transports any kid that can get to one of their high schools. And so that's been a way that people have been able to get to the school. Not advocating that you would have to do transportation for this school, but it's just something to think about, whether there's a bus stop near the school or what have you, and how people might get there.
And I will say this, so the schools vary in what extracurriculars they offer at the schools. I mean, the students still have to meet their PE requirements and all that, again, for graduation. But in your school will be a little bit different. But I will say, like at Cass Tech, the student profile they're not your athletes. Like these are kids who, like, they want to be the next Steve Jobs. Like they don't, you know what I'm saying? So
Okay, so they're not, okay.
You'll be good there with your pocket.
But we do try to give them the same experience, meaning you can compete in robotics. You know, we try to take them to, you can compete in, you know, world, whatever it's called, competition. Speak up, speak out. So we try to give them the same experience that competition and working together as a team builds, even if they're not the kids that are actively involved in athletics.
And our students will have opportunities to enroll in our career tech organizations, so like in this case, maybe SCCLA or the Business Leaders Association, those types of organizations that are specifically for the students.
In terms of the transportation piece, since we have one high school, it used to be our own high school students who do that transportation. And if they're interested in athletics and that would work out, a freshman cohort would be able, as a freshman, would not be able to play varsity level for 1 year. So that is an issue, but every year after that, yeah. If they move from outside of the district, not inside.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're gonna take a short break. We're gonna take a short break. Everybody, we'll get cookies for the rest of the time. So it's, Jack,
Sounds like a really neat program.
How you doing, Emily? You doing okay?
Learning and education.
Start with just a couple high-level reminders about what our core business is. You know, we do have a mission, vision, values, et cetera, which I'm proposing over the next year we might take a look at. But the bottom line is what we know we're about is a couple of things. And the first is, you've seen this +1+ before. It means that for every kid, several things have to happen. One of those things is they have to grow at least a year. If we're going to teach them for a year, they need to grow at least a year. But at the same time, we've got to be mindful of where proficiency is, whatever we determine to be proficiency. In part, that's state accountability, in part, it's other measures, but some kids might be 2 or 3 years behind, and 1 year's growth is not acceptable. Some kids might be advanced learners, and they might already be at proficiency, and less than 1 year's growth is not acceptable. So we know that this core business enables us to focus on growing every single kid at a minimum of 1 year rate, but for kids who need it, accelerating that beyond 1 year. That's what we attempt to build all of our academic programming around. But having said that, we've heard a lot today so far about employability. We know over the last 2 decades of high stakes accountability, focusing on the 4x4 graduation requirements, industry leaders have told us kids are graduating, they got a diploma, they got no skills, they got no common sense, they don't know how to shake your hand, look you in the eye, they don't know how to mitigate conflict, and they don't do what they say they're going to do. In other words, they're not employable. And you got to do better. And so what we heard tonight was an evolution of several years of saying employability matters, as does growth, proficiency, and accelerated growth. So having said that, we know that a few years ago we brought the community together and some friends and partners, higher ed, business and industry, parents and students, and we said, hey, listen, if your kid's in our system for 13 years, what are those outcomes or attributes that your children need to exhibit, right? And these are the things after several days working together and learning together and having civil discourse with one another, they landed on these things. And when you go to our website, you know that when you hover over each of these, there's a spelled out description of what do we mean by effective problem solvers in the East Central community. And you can read the language of that committee. But then you say, how the heck do you know if a kid's gritty? How do you know the kid's a lifelong learner? Like, how do you measure that? Well, obviously, a STAR test or any one test, particularly any one academic test only, is not going to give us an indicator of that. So then, before I get to the community-based accountability system and the work that we've evolved to since we developed this, I want to point to a couple of things to get us thinking. And these images of schools is something that those of you who have been on the board for long enough have seen. It looks like this, okay? And what I want to suggest is that if you think about our school system being driven by state accountability, right? In other words, if we assume or accept that we are accountable not to our parents and children, but to the state and its commissioner of education for high and rising STAR test scores, that being we're school driven by state accountability only, I want you to look at what would be the core business of our school. If our primary focus was to satisfy the state of Texas within the course of STAR test scores, what is our core business according to this model? So look at where the left column, the first one, it says core business at the top on the far left. You have to decide what your core business is first before you can identify how you think about the role of students, the role of parents, the role of the board, etc.
It looks like the bottom of the chart.
Yeah, I would say at the very worst, right? So get this, right? At the very worst, I think we would all agree, if the state drove everything we do, we might think of our core business as containment, monitoring, corrective action, and punishment. Or at the very best, we might think of our organization, our school system, as all about testing, remediation, and reporting. So let's just say, best case scenario, we're all about testing, remediation, and reporting. Look at how we think of student. Students would be raw material and a product. We would think of a parent as a supply source, and they determine the quality of our product. We would think of the teacher as only a skilled worker. We would think of the principal as a shop foreman. We would think of the superintendent as a plant manager and inspector and supervisor. We would think of the school board as owners and advocates. And the guiding metaphor would be, hey, we're a factory. Okay? If we're about growth, we're about proficiency, if we're about accelerated learning, and we're about employability, are we a factory? Are we okay with that? So let's think about the profile of the learner for a minute. If we're all about producing that, what would you say our core business is on the left? Could we all agree that we would say then, if we are about achieving that outcome for every kid, that we're about designing engaging academic work for students and leading them to success in that work? Can we agree on that? So now, because of that, we view our students as volunteers and knowledge workers. We view our parents as partners and members of the school community. We view our teachers as leaders, designers, and guides to instruction. Principals as leaders of leaders. Superintendent is a moral and intellectual leader and capacity builder. The board is a community builder and advocate for schools. The guiding metaphor, we are a learning organization. Okay? So what I want to suggest with that tool is that by moving 3 years ago to getting with the community and saying, what do you hope and dream for your kids when they're done in terms of their attributes? And moving to where we also asked the community and all of our partners, what are the things that we would be accomplishing if we hit the mark? That's our community-based accountability system, right? You guys are very familiar with that tool. That too means that our core business is at the top of the food chain. What we're also going to talk a little bit about today is an aspirational goal, somewhere we're headed to. Okay? When it comes to assessments, we want to move beyond just screening kids to see where they're at, just testing kids to see if they've learned the material, and just testing kids at the end of learning to say, hey, you passed the test for the teacher. To a place where once kids have learned, they can do something with that. So when you think about the CAS schools, that's about learning and doing something with that learning, right? And innovation isn't innovation unless it can provide a product or a service that has value. Learning in school means nothing if you can't do something with it. So a performance assessment would be, for example, a second grade group of teachers who say, hey, one of the things we got to teach our students during this unit is the life cycle of a plant. So they do that in ways that maybe seem somewhat familiar, but they also say, hey, during this process, we're going to have these kids plant a garden. And they're going to do everything it takes to plant that garden, tend that garden, nurture that garden, grow that garden, and then reap the harvest. But even better, they've got a plan with the life skills class to make a spaghetti dinner using the vegetables that they, you see how they've now done something that's of value, that can be exhibited or demonstrated, that they understand the life cycle of a plant, but better, actually doing something with that. What good is life cycle of a plant if you can't do something with it? So we're aspiring to design and build a school system that ultimately is about what can kids do what they learn, with what they learn. Does that make sense? And we know that we have a service orientation, right? We have a goal for every kid, every year to be involved in not just community service, but service learning. This ties and couples very nicely with that. Another thing I want you to look at is something that we want to think about when we're continuing to evolve our school system, is this idea that there's just not one kind of gifted kid. There's just not one kind of smart, right? So on the back of that, you look across the top, this is one way that Howard Gardner defined different ways kids are smart, or people are smart. So you might be smart in a visual, spatial way. You might be also smart, or only smart, in a bodily, kinesthetic way. You might be smart musically. You might be smart interpersonally. You might be smart intrapersonally. You might be smart linguistically, verbal and written. I didn't sound like I was right. And or logical and mathematical. So if you think about yourself honestly, and you were to say, hey, when it comes to musical, am I exceptionally smart? And maybe you put a little mark right there. If you say, well, I'm kind of smart when it comes to music, put a little mark right there. Well, what if I'm not really smart when it comes to music? That would be me. I would check that box at the bottom. Okay? Well, if you did that for every single kind of smart, and then you drew a line connecting those dots, it looked like a little heartbeat, right? But if I looked at mine compared to Steve's, or mine compared to Claudia's, or we look at all of ours compared to one another's, I guarantee you, no two of us would probably be smart in the same way or ways. So to say that there's only one kind of smart in our school system, we're fooling ourselves. Right? So it's really about in what ways do we provide opportunities in our school system for kids to connect in the many ways that they are smart, and to be valued and honored and considered to be gifted as a result, not just one kind of smart. So aspirational, it's a guide for our thinking as we design programs, curriculum, assessment systems, ways of measuring success, ways of communicating outcomes to the community, right? So that's another idea I just think in goal setting this year that we really want to think about. So here's how we've attempted to realize these attributes of a graduate. We've been working to learn about what it means to be a highly reliable school system. In other words, what we say we're going to produce, you can take it to the bank. What we say what we're going to do, we consistently do it. We are highly reliable. We are an HRO. We've also developed a campus continuous growth system. You've heard about CCG. It's a way that we really look deeply at how we're performing and look for opportunities for us to target continuous improvement in a very disciplined way. Oh my gosh, we've got a community-based accountability system, or a CBAS. We also have campus improvement plans, or SIPs. We also have district improvement plans, or DIPs. We have targeted improvement plans, or TIPs. We have effective schools frameworks the state requires us to use as a framework to align our continuous improvement efforts. Oh wow, we have a district continuous growth process as well, a DCG. And not to be left out, we use critical success factors, or CSFs. Now, you're probably feeling like this. So do our principals, so do our curriculum staff, so do our teachers, right? So we've got great stuff we're using, much of which is dictated to us as mandates through statute, but we've got to make some sense of it. We've got to streamline all of this, bring it all together into one system. Otherwise, we're going mile wide and inch deep because we don't know with clarity what the heck it is actually that we are all about in terms of operationalizing the outcomes that we've been talking about. So what we're really thinking about as a metaphor is pruning, right? We know that if you take a tree that's out of control, it's not going to optimally be able to function and thrive. But if you prune that thing up, not only does it look beautiful, it actually can thrive and grow most efficiently. Right? So we're thinking about all of the stuff that we're doing and trying to prune it. Bring it together in a way that allows us to execute so much more efficiently, so much more with clarity. And so here's where we are. We've had board goals and performance objectives that worked exceptionally well for us. The board has said, listen, this district's going to provide an exceptional learning environment for every doggone kid in every school. And we've also had 3 performance categories, if you will. We've broken our organizational structure and continuous improvement efforts into That would be academic achievement, right? We focus on growth, we focus on advanced academics, we focus on proficiency. We know that we focus on culture and climate. We want to make sure we know how our workplace is working for our staff. We want to know how our service and cooperation and collaboration is working for our departments. Intra-district, are we working together? Are we working efficiently? Are we communicating well? And we also want to know what our parents and our students think about the way that we're serving them. So we get a lot of feedback to understand if we have an optimal culture and climate, and we use that information constantly 2 times a year to really make changes that make a difference. And then thirdly, we have a category of finance, because we know we got to be good stewards of taxpayer revenue, and we've got to use to the maximum efficiency every resource that we have, every fiscal resource we have. We need to be accountable for it, we need to account for it, and we need to be able to be transparent and publicly report that we're doing that really well, right? So we've had goal, we've had performance categories. Within those performance categories, we've used performance objectives in the past, right? And they've worked well for us. You know that at that point, we've cascaded that down through every department and every school. When they give you their monthly, their annual reports, you see them talking about performance or achievement. You see them talking about culture, climate. You see them talking about finance. We know that that's a good organizational structure. What we're suggesting now is, in order to bring all that together in a way that takes us to the next level, we need to really focus on 4 district priorities, and we need to take all of those frameworks that were scattered all over that page and make sure that they're accounted for and fit within those 4 priorities. Because if we can do that, we can build scorecards that we can see signals in real time of whether we're actually making an impact. Are we actually improving in the areas we said we were going to improve? Doing the things we said we were going to do? And if we're not, most importantly, do we know it? And what are we doing about it? And so the priorities piece and the scorecard and signaling piece is what we're going to share with you today, as well as our process for getting there and incorporating all of those things that we splashed all over the screen a minute ago. All right. Is this you?
All right. This is so very eloquently. Did a lot of talking about what we're going to be discussing, and so my
eloquent, but then you get a lot of talking.
he kind of said my slides. So I don't know what to say now. You stole my thunder, so I guess we're doing real quick for you. So basically, we're taking all these big system notes that all our principals and departments have been working around and with, and trying to streamline it and just make it easier and just make it more simple and just help them see how everything creates, so that all people throughout our organization, whether you work in central office, campuses, students, that everybody can see how everything aligns throughout our organization. So that's really been our big goal, because right now everybody's filling out different templates for everything and reading and submitting different things for everything. It's just complicated, and it takes more time than necessary. So we're really working on consolidating those systems, making it simpler, and aligning everything so everybody sees that string that goes from the board goal all the way down to the student, and how all that aligns and really tying in what we're about. So as Mr. Scott said, we're using these systems, a high reliability organization, schools. We looked at the effective schools framework from the state. We took our PDA-based accountability system, which we've created and invested so much in, to look to see how does all of this relate to community-based accountability, to make sure that we're packaging and encompassing everything in one system. Mr. Holbert.
That's a picture of what it looks like. We combine it all. So across the top, you can see the high reliability, the effective school framework, the community-based accountability system, and then the critical success factors that use the SIPs and the DIPs and the other acronyms.
Mr. Mansfield loves school acronyms.
Yeah.
I thought I'd throw that out.
It's all my speaking, that
You'll notice that each of them has a different way of describing it, whether it's a level, a lever, a pillar, or a CSF. And we consolidated it down to one in the first column of black. we just kind of have our own categories. And you'll notice like culture and climate is in all of the systems. And so you'll see that it's level 1 from high reliability, level 3 from effective schools, and it's, you have 2 pillars there to talk about it and critical success factor. And then the next one about effective teaching reporting is another obviously big one for us. And then some of them have less categories, like if you jump down to effective leadership, that shows up in 2 of them. Financial and operational system only has 1 of them down there. And then the other thing I want to kind of draw your attention to is one where we put NA on there. You see that one in the middle? So it's the 5th level from high reliability. It's meant to be like the culminating step. Like you do each of the 4 steps first. And that one, so that's like some potential future work for us. But we thought we would take what we're doing currently and consolidate it into one system. It's before we start taking on new pieces. And so the other thing I just want to reiterate is our intent is not to water down like community-based accountability system. I know it's something the board takes very seriously that we've developed and we've been working on. It's not meant to water that down in any capacity as much as to make it where each of these systems is really clearly articulated, where you don't have to go through this stuff 4 different times. But let's go through it once really well and really clearly. So it's about kind of streamlining and reducing redundancies more than eliminating anything. Question, probably you're looking at it here.
Okay, so next you see our goal cascade. You've heard this mentioned a couple of times in the last few minutes. So you'll see how it starts with our overall board goal, and then from that we develop our district goals, the superintendent's goals, in his annual evaluation. From that we come up with our department and campus goals. All of those 3 items are ones that you've seen consistently over the last few years. And then also from that we have many departments, like within, so we have our curriculum instruction and assessment department, but within that we have assessment, we have federal granted programs. And then you have BOSS, that's the operations people, and so within that there's the business department, there's personnel, there's transportation. So those are like, all that list you see right there, that's like all of the mini departments, and at the campus level that corresponds to grade levels. So they would develop goals, and then from that, the staff would develop their goals, and then student goals. So starting with the overall goal, there would be an alignment all the way down to student goals, where everyone is on the same page, working on the same overall priorities.
So just to clarify, you would actually see that whatever the board goal was, and whatever it was that we were focusing on in our priorities would actually show up in an individual teacher's annual evaluation in terms of what their goals and priorities were. So as Shannon said a minute ago, you'll see a string from the boardroom all the way down to the classroom. Because one of the things we want to make sure is if we say we want to develop those attributes of in every graduate, that it needs to permeate into what teachers' decisions are about the experiences they provide for kids every day.
So you see the dotted line here. So we're going to be developing scorecards, and in a second I'm going to show you a sample of that. So the board goal down to the mini department and grade level goals would have scorecards, and then staff, that's really more their evaluation goal, their T-test goal. Okay? So we would be developing scorecards for these 4 circles up here. And so this next part is going to be a little bit challenging because I just realized that this screen is not that screen.
Oh.
There's a bit of lag.
It's on the presenter.
So when I click on that link, is it going to show up there? Because that's not what that is. Okay, so you have in your folder this little colored paper, which is
It's circling.
on that.
Oh, it's there on the left.
Oh, there it is.
It's hiding it. Sam, made it over. Bring it back, Sam, bring it back.
Here's one, Santa Ana.
Oh!
It's okay,
Okay, there was.
This is awesome.
Ta-da!
Don't go back. Stay right there.
Okay, so you will notice on this paper, there are 4 priorities, but there's 6 or 7 things underneath them. These are the 7 categories that on the previous slide that Jonathan showed you. Those 7 categories over on the left-hand column, here they are. And we have grouped them into 4 priority areas. So priority 1 is the teaching and learning environment. Priority 2, high-performing and engaged workforce. 3, inclusive and collaborative partnerships. And 4, resources and operational excellence. So if you turn to the next page, what we've done is take our current district goal and performance objectives and fit it into this template to just kind of give you a sample of how it would work. Okay? So, for example, number 1, this is the one about STAR, school progress domain part A, increasing growth in math reading and math. So this is one of our performance objectives this year. And so then next to that shows where we are so far. And then on the right, that's our signaling system. So these are the strategic activities that we're going to be doing to meet this annual results measure. And then we're going to use a signaling system, and again, this is just a sample, of like red, yellow, green to indicate where we are in our progress of meeting that. So this will be a thing that we will update quarterly so that you will be able to see where we are in our progress in meeting our annual results measures. Now we have had quite a bit of discussion about this particular template. So these annual results measures, those are our current performance objectives. So we're proposing that we change our terminology and start calling them annual results measures. And so if you look down through here, you will recognize all of these annual results measures as things we've been working on all year. So all of priority 1 here, that's what currently is within our academic learning environment part that we have. If you turn to the back part,
So Tom, you guys want to make a distinction. Annual results measures, sometimes in business, you'll hear key performance indicators or KPIs. Okay? We're not using that terminology, we're using annual results indicators.
and so then priority 2 picks up the culture and climate goals that we currently have for performance objectives. So those would fall under our priority 2 area. So this shows you the ones that we currently have and shows you how we would report on progress quarterly with our signaling system. Again, we do color-coded, letting you know where we are at that particular time. Priority 3, that's the one regarding community engagement. So we actually put the community-based accountability system performance objective in that spot. And then the green priority 4, that's our finance part that we currently have. So this is to show you how what we have been doing can fit into this new system. But this would be how we would report on all of those things, we've compiled it into these areas. And so I'm not going to show you an example of it right now, but like the improvement plans will have these areas. And so all of their annual results measures for all of these priorities, and then all of the things we normally have in an improvement plan would be all together in one plan. And we built the plan in such a way that when we do have to create a tip to send to the state, or when Ms. Rokas has to upload our campus improvement plans to the state, we can just pull out the things that they want for that particular reporting mechanism out of our plan, our template to do, instead of having to create all these separate plans like we currently have to do. The template we've come up with incorporates all of those components. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you is the new template that we want to use for performance objectives. So in the past, when we brought it to you for approval, we had the page that had it in those three areas: academic learning environment, open climate, finance, and within that we put the performance objectives. We want to be consistent across all of our documents that we're doing now, so we're proposing that it will look like this. So we'll have priority area 1, which is teaching and learning environment, and then next to that we'll put our annual results measures or performance objectives for that. And we'll have priority 2, high performing and engaged workforce, and the annual results measures that go with that will be next to that, including collaborative partnerships, and then resources and operational excellence. So it's still the same areas that we have had now, just kind of divided up differently as you see in the scorecard. So that's what we would like to do when we bring our performance objectives to you this summer, is to have it more in this template, so it will be consistent with our improvement plan template, so it will be consistent with our scorecard. So it all looks similar, it all has the same template, or the same format. Any questions on these two documents?
So this replaces those pillars then, right?
So not really, no, because we still would we'll still report on the CBAS pillars. It's just that so when we did our report last year, we came up with some performance objectives specifically for CBAS, but that was like a separate document. Those things would be put into this one document where everything would be. And actually, there's a place on the improvement plan document to even mark if it's for CBAS, if it's for the effective skills framework, if it's for the campus improvement plan, which one is used. So that way, when we get ready to report on it, we can just pull it out from there. So it's not replacing those pillars, it's just they're going to be embedded within the same document as all the other things are.
So another way to think about it is, if I'm an individual teacher and I need to make sure I'm aligned to the focus areas, right now I have to think about my own goals, and I got to look at the effective schools framework and extract from that something I can do to support them. I got to look at the continuous campus growth plan, and I got to extract from that something I can focus on to contribute to that. I got to look at, and the list goes on. Now they'll be able to just look at this template, includes all these priority areas where everything's incorporated, and build out their own personal goals. Of course, the same thing can be said for every department, every campus. The big three, BOSS, CIA, and campuses can do the same thing. So it's just way more efficient and way more clear. I can see clearly the things that matter, the things that reflect alignment to what we're trying to achieve.
So back to CBAS though. So like right now, we're preparing for our report in June. So we've got some subcommittees that are gathering up all the evidence and all that sort of thing. Whereas next year, when we do, and really this year we're starting it, we're going to have a new comprehensive needs assessment that campuses and departments will do. Well, all of those measures that are within CDAS will be built into that comprehensive needs assessment. So instead of it being this separate process with these separate committees gathering things up, we'll be able to pull it from that and then give our report to the board. So we're just trying to pull all these things we're doing into one process.
As Jonathan said, not eliminating, making sure they're all included.
Okay, so the next thing is a timeline. So that's another thing. All of these things have been on different timelines. We've had performance objectives that have been brought to you in May and June. And then we've had campuses that start their CCG process like in July. And then we'll do our CDG process in like September. And then sometime during that time, the state will have us do something. And then in the spring, we've been doing the CDAS. We're going to put all of this in one timeline all together. And so our new timeline is next Tuesday, we're going to train our principals on all of this and on all the new templates we've come up with in this whole process. And then throughout April and May, they are going to be doing their comprehensive needs assessment, where they will be looking at all their data. They'll be looking at student achievement data, discipline data, attendance data, all the different types of things that we have within the community-based accountability system, with community engagement, with student opportunities for extracurricular activities. You know, all those things are within that finance stuff. So that's going to take place in April and May. Also during May, our CCG process and also our schools that have been in IR have had to go through this growth opportunity root cause analysis process. And so Jonathan is going to be helping them with that part. And then in June, that's when we'll get our end of year data, STAR is part of it, and we'll have our end of year survey stuff and some other things like that. So they'll go back and kind of add a little bit more to their comprehensive needs assessment. And then in like June, July, we'll do our district and campus annual results measures. We'll bring them to you for approval. Previously, we did May, June for district and campus performance objectives. We're going to move it just a little bit later to June, July with the district and campus annual results and measures for future approval. Then, between June and July, our campuses and our departments will be working on their improvement plans. We'll be drafting them out. Because by the time they get to our district leadership, when everybody comes back, it's July 24th and 25th, we want them to come with their draft plan. So we can do some work on those during our district leadership. And then once they finalize those plans, then, as we've done in the past, we'll bring them to you in like August or September for you to take a look at. And then we're going to do quarterly progress monitoring on the scorecard with the signaling system, the color-coded signaling system. So that's the timeline we're looking at. So everyone will start the process in the spring and have their improvement plans by the time school is starting. And then as some of these other things come up where we need to report things, we'll pull what we need out of the plan and put it into whatever it needs to go into to send off to the state or whatever. And so that will be our cycle, instead of having all these separate timelines and cycles. So that's our plan. Questions?
I'm also sure that I have a question as much as a statement. For the last couple of years, we've been telling everybody, state assessments, we're going to spend that much time on it, and community-based assessment, we're going to really dive into. But when I look at this, all of priority one is state assessments. Community-based accountability is priority 3. It's not what we're talking about.
So let me speak to that. This is because we took our performance objectives we had this year and kind of just fit it in here as a sample. That's not how it will look whenever we're developing it this year. There are things from the community-based accountability system actually that are within each of these priority areas.
So that's what needs to be highlighted on this. And instead of increased points on STAR school progress on main target. Because if you tell the community one thing and then you show them something else, if coming in. And if like the Prego commercial, it's in the sauce, if it's in the sauce, then let's show it. And prioritize that, and put the state stuff in the bottom. So I don't mind if there's state stuff in priority one.
Well, let's put the
But I don't think, I look at community-based accountability stuff, and this may be what Claudia was alluding to just a minute ago, is where is that stuff? And how important is it? And priority three is not important.
No, I know, it just so happened that was the only current performance objective that we had that would fit in that priority. But back to this chart that Jonathan showed you earlier, if you look over at CPAS, you can see where the pillars line up with these priority areas. So that is actually in most of the priority areas.
Well, I can understand that, you can understand that, if we're gonna show something in the community, it needs to say CPAS, not SARS.
So two things. Number one, for this tool, for our internal signaling system and signaling system to the board, we'll make sure that as we build those out, the things that are put there first are the things that come from CPAS. But this also is not the CPAS report. The community the report we send out to the community is exclusively, now it'll be all embedded in here, so we'll just extract it all from here.
But if your teachers are building their stuff based on this, what are they gonna see? Priority one, state assessment, state assessment, state assessment, state assessment.
So I think what we're also suggesting is if we don't reorganize, what we thought was contained, the community-based accountability is highest priority, state accountability this much, but in reality, when you reflect it, in an effort to cascade it down to the classroom teacher, it looks like our priorities to teachers are state accountability and the community-based accountability stuff. That's what this actually reflects what it currently looks like. So what we're suggesting is now we have a much more clear ability, a tool that'll help us ensure that the prioritization is going to go to the things that are most important to the board and to the community, and there's no way to build goals for departments, campuses, and ultimate individual teachers without including those community-based accountability. Where currently, it's the chance, because it's too confusing. Maybe there, may not. We want to make sure it's there. So, duly noted.
And also, as I was saying, hold on, I didn't pull up the actual template for the improvement plans, which will come to y'all in early fall. It is actually indicated on there if it's a CBAS, if it's CCG goal. It's going to be very clear on the plan what it's going to be.
So we can also make sure that the CBS ones are all prioritized at the top of every single priority area. Yeah.
The interesting thing, I think, Mr. Ryan, is that when these were written, we didn't have CBS built out, and so these are written on our current ones. And now that we have CBS written out, or built out for all the pillars that we've done this year, then after you all do your work goal, then when we go to create those goals, we'll ensure that that's reflected in a much more higher priority than we did, because we didn't have that when we built these out last year.
Sorry to do that too.
It's true. Because when we started,
Now it's just evolving.
yeah, when we started putting it together, just for practice, because we wanted to just practice, so the only thing we had was what we built and what we designed from last year. But it was something that we noticed. We were like,
Hey,
it doesn't align with what we hope to be, that is what we currently have.
Yeah, and the intent of this really was more to just kind of demonstrate to you kind of how it would work as far as the signal system, not necessarily that this is what we do. Any other questions about that?
Thank you. All right, so this isn't a budget workshop, but always when we're thinking about our goals, we need to be aware at a high level what budget projections look like, implications. We're not going to go into the same detail that we did mid-year, but we really broke down our assumptions, our projected revenue, and expenditures as we currently knew them to be, if nothing changed. But much has evolved since then. We're deeper into the session. House Bill 3 is passed out of the House unanimously. Senate Bill 4 is is moving through the Senate. We know that they got to come together and find some common ground, but what we know is there's going to be significant dollars put into public education. We know that. We just don't know what exactly that's going to look like. And so what I thought we would have Judy do today is just kind of point to some things we need to be thinking about if the House Bill 3 version ends up looking more like what ends up being the new funding structure. But then also be mindful of if the House Senate Bill 4 version carries today, it's going to look very much different, even though they're both putting in a lot of money. One's going to give us a transformative ability to make a significant impact, and the other is just going to allow us to give big raises and tax relief and nothing else changes. So we just need to know. And then there's also some things that we need to be thinking about with regard to this potential windfall that we got to be cautious of as a board when it comes to our budget development. So Judy's going to share that in 2 slides. I didn't steal much of that. Oh.
You didn't steal much thunder, but
Awesome. Thank you.
I will tell y'all, it's been nice to listen to all these presentations because they're very focused, they know what they're doing, but mine is based on politicians. And you know what that means, you don't know what you're going to have. So anyway, this is just going to be kind of information for y'all because it changes all the time. And let me give you a good example of how it changes for House Bill 3. We have hired 2 companies, we use them every year, Moak and Casey and Equity Center. And what we do is watch what they do, because they watch the legislature, they do our runs. Well, Equity Center has us getting about $1.9 million more than Moak and Casey. Am I worried? Yes. I even called them and said, what numbers are you using? They're just about the same numbers. So I said, okay, what is the difference? It's their assumptions. One is assuming one thing and one is assuming another thing. So you almost on all of this, you have to wait until the last vote to say what's going to happen to East Central and other districts. And today, about 3 o'clock, I got a first template from what we call Omar. And Omar Garcia, he worked at TA for years, and he retired probably about 15 years from TA. He is the only one that does this template. And he is revered, and they hope that he lives forever and ever, because when he passes away, we don't know what the state of Texas school districts are going to do to figure out their information. But, so I got the template from him late today, so now I'm going to start playing with my numbers to see how we're coming. But we all know that we're just playing, because until they say which bill they're going to use, we really won't know how it's going to impact East Central. Now, we do know that House Bill 3, that they're going to have the basic lot would go to $6,030, which they say is $800 some odd dollars more than we got last year. But that's not our case, because for you, Mr. Massengale, they took away our CEI. And so I know how you like little letters. CEI is Cost of Education Index. They're throwing that out. So now our increase is only like $500 some odd dollars per ADA. So there's a little bit of difference on that. And the tax rate for the M&O would, for us, we're at $1.04. It would go down to 96 cents, and then we can add 4 cents to that and go for $1 even without having to go to the voters or anything. And we hope that then the next year we can go up 1 more penny. It looks like there's no option for a TRE, which we wouldn't want to do one anyway. But
So to clarify, we're at $1.04 right now. The state's going to roll that back to 96 cents, and we have authority to go to $1, which means our taxpayers are going to get a 4 cents tax reduction from the state right off the bat. And the way that we still generate more revenue, remember the gold pennies, silver pennies, bronze pennies. They used to be pennies from $1 to $1.06, but now they're from 96 cents to $1.02.
No, it's $10.
To $1.
$1 to $1.02.
So the point is, we're not losing revenue because the state's putting more into the contribution, but they're reducing taxes, my 4 cents essentially.
And for us, by going down 4 cents just in M&O, means that we will collect less than $2 million. So the state says they're gonna make that up.
So they're gonna give you more value for the gold ones to make up for
To
that.
help offset that cost. And so with the House Bill 3, one of the things is about the salary increases. They're talking about that they want a salary increase of so much money for all full-time employees except administrators. And so what they're saying is that it should be 25% of the increase in the basic allotment. But there's so many ways you can come to that formula that we have to wait to get direction from them on how to calculate that. If I just use the number that's been thrown around, it's like $1,800, and that would cost us a little over $2.5 million without fringes. No administrator, just full-time employees. But again, that depends on how the formula calculates out. And then I read another thing that, we're thinking it's going to be $1,800 a year, and I read an article that they said, oh no, that would be over 2 years. So they haven't been defined about that. So we'll have to wait and see how they are going to do on that. And then one of the biggest things is state comp ed. Right now, we're funded by free and reduced. So we know right away, because they do the best of the 6 months free and reduced lunches for the kids who are in the free and reduced program. So we pretty much know right away what we're going to get for state comp ed. Well, now they're going to do it by census block. And I'm just wondering how TA is going to come up with all the census block for over 1,000 different school districts. And
So Judy, do you understand, what I understand here is essentially you can bank on what you would have got by using free and reduced, but then they're going to use census blocks because the theory is if you're defined as coming from a impoverished situation, if you meet that criteria, then you get funding. But poverty is not poverty, it's not poverty. There are bands of poverty. And that they're going to use census blocks. It's something that ECISD has been doing, and they seem to have the legislatures convinced that they can take that same process and apply it to everybody. That in addition to what you would get for your free and reduced population, some districts, particularly districts that have a higher population of students from poverty, would actually get more money on top of that. So, in other words, just because we have 70% free and reduced, and just because Judson has 70, these aren't accurate numbers, we are 70% free and reduced, and Judson had 70% free and reduced, we get the same money, but then when they use census blocks, they might determine, oh, at East Central, you've got 30% more kids from the deeper degree of poverty, you get additional dollars, more than Judson. You see what I'm saying? That's the concept. That's the concept. Whether that's actually going to happen or not, as Judy says, we don't know. But I heard the chair, Dan Huber, describe that about 2 weeks ago, and that's the intent of that.
And then they also have other provisions about weights, funding weights for different programs, career tech, dyslexia. They are going to take away some things. The high school allotment is going away. The gifted and talented allotment is going away. And then we get $500 and $250 each for our auxiliary and para staff, and that's going away. And so we'll just have to wait and see how it all pans out once we get a final bill that they're going to approve. Because on Senate Bill 4, there's not a whole lot that I've really seen in every version that I've gotten from both Casey and Equity Center. They don't even talk about Senate Bill 4. And so the main thing that I know of Senate Bill 4, and Roland would know a lot more, is that they want to give $5,000 a year for teacher raise, only teachers. And so for us, that would be $3 million, $3.5 million. It depends if we would put in nurses, librarians, counselors. So that would be very hefty raise. And it's not that they're not deserving of it, but the issue that I think we're all very worried about is, are they going to sustain this funding? Because if they want to give those type of raises, they have to sustain the funding because most school districts cannot afford that. And so we'll just have to see how they get together and they come out and say what the final figure will be.
So if we were doing, we don't, I know Judy's not really wanting to do this and I know why, but the runs, if House Bill 3 passed as written, we would be talking about in the neighborhood of $6 to $7 million additional dollars in ECISD. But as Judy said, there are so many question marks, and it still relies on the Senate and the House coming together and reaching some higher ground about what they're going to bless. But the reality of it is, in the best case scenario, it can be as little as $6 million to ECISD and as much as $8 million to ECISD. And we're not making it to the last vote. The Senate version includes the same amount of money into public education, but the entire budget is ate up by $5,000 pay raises and the way they're reducing taxes and contributing the difference. So the net difference is net zero for ECISD. Yes, teachers would get a $5,000 raise. Yes, our citizens get a tax break. Our operating budget goes nowhere. In fact, in some cases, it looks like we lose money. So the reality of it is they're both putting, let's call it $6.3 billion into education. One actually makes a difference. The other one, we lose money, but teachers might want to vote for those legislatures next year as approved. So you see where the politics is driving the strategy.
When you were talking about poverty isn't poverty, isn't poverty, isn't poverty, and looking at the sign weights versus number of people, it sounds like to me, or is this your impression that they're trying to make things equitable, not equal?
Yes.
So, which would be fairer.
One of their goals is to move closer to equity. One of their goals is to, so while the previous model was so complex, all these weights for all these things, they're trying to say, listen, we're just going to dump more money in the basic allotment. We're going to simplify things and make it be less complex. You're going to see more revenue, which gives you the ability to do whatever you want with GT, more ability to do whatever you want with pre-K as you see needed, so you don't have to have extra weights and allotments for it. And again, this is all coming from Dan Huber. His intent here is the chairs to create this kind of thing. And then we're also going to use census blocks to say, if you're a school that has a percentage of students from poverty, we're going to dig deeper and see just what is the depth of poverty, and make sure you get additional money above that if your school community is serving kids from poverty that are actually from generational poverty, right? So there's a difference. You might come from a household income of $30,000 this year, but you might have been that your whole life for 3 generations. That's different than Dad lost his job last year and our income last year was $30,000. You see what I'm saying? So again, these are the intents. That's what passed out of the House. There is no guarantees that anything is going to look like that. Just wanted you to know that's kind of where it's at right now. Super cautious optimism. And Judy added skeptical. Because she knows better.
I am, because I've seen it too many times. And I'll give you a great example. The state said we're going to fund $75 for the health insurance for every employee. And, it first came out and it was on our template and you saw that and you knew you got that money. Well, it's now nowhere to be found. So it's in the money you get. They've taken it from there and just kind of said, well, we're going to add it in here. So you see that all the time from them. So I'm a little cautious because
And skeptical, rightly so.
because I'm afraid what will happen in 2 years when they've had all these issues that they've had to spend all this money on. And another big issue that will be coming out is that TA will owe a lot of money back to the federal government for special ed. And so when they have to write that check, who is going to pay for it? That's what I'm afraid. So, I am skeptical and I want us to be conservative. I want to give the best raise we can to all of our employees. But I want to make sure that the district doesn't go back. we're budgeting right now with the different departments, and we're asking them to be very reliable, be very conscientious of what they're budgeting. Nobody's really getting any new money. We'll be going into salaries and what we need to do, but we have to sustain our school district, and we have to be careful of our funds. Our fund balance is our savings account. So,
Just to recall, through our reorganization of grade levels, some programs, we were able to consolidate some things and reduce some staff, and shared that in here. The reality of it is, it's allowed us to be more efficient in filling all of our classrooms where the populations of students are residing in our community in so much more efficient way. We're running models right now where through attrition, we're actually able to reduce a significant number of teacher units. Significant to us is anywhere from 8 to as many as 12. And when you look at that average salary, and we're talking about a good chunk of dollars. So we're still able to do what we've always done, assuming we get no more money, right? We're operating at a higher degree of efficiency while nothing's given. Right? We still have good student-teacher ratios, actually more optimal, and adequate staff, etc. It's just we've organized ourselves to be most efficient in that way. And I say that because personnel is our highest funding category, right? That's where most of our dollars are. So we just tried to set ourselves up for the worst case scenario.
and, we also talked about this earlier, and one of the things that's really hurting us is losing our students to charter schools. And so basically, if we lose 100 students, there's over $600,000. If we've lost 1,000 students, that's over $6 million. So that's another thing we have to be careful.
I want you to think about that for a minute. The 200 kids that ended up at IDEA this year, they're across pre-K to 5 grade levels. It's not like, well, it's 25 from Pecan Valley, we can reduce one teacher. It's another 25 from John Lynn, for tradition, that's one teacher. It's spread out such that you really can't reduce staff. Unfortunately, it's not like you can divide 200 by 22 and say we can reduce that number of teachers. So it's, when I said earlier, it's very efficient to fund 2 public education systems. And guess what else? You still got the same number of principals, same number of counselors, same number of nurses. The electric bill's the same. So your fixed costs don't change. So what essentially happens is the students that remain in ECISD, we got less money per student to spend on their education. So it's not down to charters. It's not anti-charter. It's saying stay in together. There's one more piece of information that is important for everybody to know. The state has already approved enough charter schools to serve 1.5 million students in Texas. There are currently only 300,000 students being served in charter schools in Texas. I want you to think about that. Charters are advocating for expansion. They're advocating for additional charters. They're claiming we've got wait lists all over the place. Our parents want something different. Please give us the ability to add more schools. They've already been approved for 1.5 million seats. There are only 300,000 students in a charter school. If they field all of those seats today, it would cost the state $15 billion additional dollars to fund them. That's a fact. It's a fact in the legislative budget board. So again, I'm not sitting here in front of you saying we need to be anti-charter. We need to be pro-design, intentional, responsible distribution such that our tax dollar is efficiently utilized and that there's truth in taxation, real truth in taxation to our constituents and ourselves as taxpayers.
Well, the tasking we discussed earlier, and the fact that we're doing our learning academy and our language academy, is that going to be hopefully attractive enough to kind of encourage what we have to offer opposed to charter schools? And don't they get to pick and choose their students as well, or we don't? We serve all students.
Yeah.
So aren't those some things that we will work on kind of advertising in some sort?
So, yes, earlier in the meeting before you got here, and I'm not pointing that out to be, oh man, that was bad.
That was bad. Steve was thinking it.
was thinking of.
But I just wanted to say, that was a fantastic question.
Thank you.
I pointed out to Jordan, because that is exactly why we design those programs that way, is because it's studying what parents say who choose something different. Those are the kind of things that matter the most to them. So we want to provide choice within our own school district, so that there's no reason for them to go. Now, I do want to tell you, IDEA, Jubilee, Brooks Academy, they duplicate the same things we offer. They do not do anything we don't do. So it would also be responsible to say, now, if you're going to build a charter school on WWY and you offer programming for, let's just use it, autistic children who really need intensive support, right, that we cannot provide, well, that might be a really smart reason to build a charter on WWY. It's an enhancement to the public school system, not a duplication. See? Really good question. I apologize, Mr. Mulkey. Made me say that like that.
Mr. T, how much does the state pay per child per day?
Per child per day, $36, $37. Well, they also give you a basic allotment. Currently, it's $5,300 and something dollars, I guess.
It's 5,000, ours right now is 5,505.
Okay. And they're saying they will move it to 6,030. Okay, that's good.
And the last
Cost
thing,
to educate us is what we get.
Depends on the student's needs. In some cases, absolutely not.
Right.
Even close.
and the last thing I'm really excited, now this is good news for y'all.
Oh,
Get a raise.
all trustees, 100% raise. Everyone, 100%. Let's see.
Our bond payment next year is going down by $1,800,000. So that means property taxes for INS is going to go down anywhere between 4 to 6 cents. And so it depends on what the property values come in. So our taxpayers are going to see 4 to 6, maybe 4 to 6 cents on INS side. Then they're going to see another 4 cents on the local side. So our taxpayers are going to see a reduction in property.
You can see as nice as 8, 10 cents.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My taxes went up like
Oh,
$5,000.
talking about.
No, but I'm talking about. I got it, I'm just saying, maybe it'll wash it out, let me complete my sentence. Thank you. Let me take my ears off.
Don't want to know the plus.
Y'all have any questions?
So one more point Judy and I talked about and wanted to make sure we made is that if we do get, if it works out and we get that $6 million, right? There's no guarantee that the second year of the biennium it's going to look the same. Okay? So what we have to be really careful about as we build our budget is to really be conscientious about the costs that we're building in that are going to require perennial payment. In other words, if you increase salaries, you got to pay that every year. Whereas if you repair asphalt as a one-time capital improvement, that's just a one-time expense. That if next year we get less money and we can't do that, it's okay. But if you invest in things that are going to cause us to have to pay, so I think we need to come up with, we think about kind of the percentage of whatever new money we get as a result of new laws. That we'll allocate to costs that are going to be year over year. Knowing that you've got to be super conservative with no guarantees that it's going to be the same amount of money the next year or beyond. That's fair? All right. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
All right. You're going, what? Everybody on staff is going, who put that on there? What is that? That's ridiculous. Well, if you've ever read Jim Collins' Good to Great, he says that great organizations always have big, hairy, audacious goals that they're paying attention to and trying to utilize to move their organization forward. Okay? That's what that is, Shannon. I know that bothered you significantly.
I
And
guess
so-
you put that there.
Some of,
It's
some
actually
of
put her
our,
name on the slide.
oh, I did have her name, I'm sorry. I copy pasted, her name was on the slide, I copied one of her other slides. and put it. So she thought, what am I gonna do with this? How do I present this?
This
I don't even know
morning,
what it is.
this morning.
All right, so some of our big, hairy, audacious goals include studying what it would take to offer pre-kindergarten to every single 4-year-old in ECISD, whether they qualify for it or not. Now, having said that, House Bill 3 is intending to provide funding for full-day pre-K. The state has historically only provided half-day. This board, for generation, at least a generation, has invested in full-day. For us, it's $600,000 to $700,000 to provide full-day pre-K for the children that qualify, because we don't get funded for the other half. If the state were to fund that, we would have the ability to start thinking about what it would take to provide pre-K for every single 4-year-old. And best of the data that we got available, EDI data is one of those forms of data that helps us identify how many 4-year-olds. We can also look at how many pre-K kids did we serve, and then how many showed up for kindergarten. It's always about 200 kids, 300 kids difference. So we suspect that every year there's between 200 and 300 4-year-olds somewhere, but not in our pre-K. Not in pre-K for SA. So they're either with grandma in a child care center, but they're not in an early education center. So what it would take to budget that, we're going to play with that. We're going to study that. In your packet, boy, you better have some reading glasses. There's a little table, and I mean it's little, okay? All right? This is what pre-K for SAs utilize for their sliding scale, because one thing that they've always done is if you don't qualify, there's several reasons you can qualify for pre-K, military, language deficiency, special needs, or income. But if you don't meet any of those, then there's bands of household income given the number of people in the household, and then you have a fee for the year to still get to go to pre-K SA. So we use this as a starting point for our discussions. I mean, let's say you got a family of 4 that makes a household income of $60,000 a year, which is $25,000 above the poverty line. Okay? They can send a 4-year-old to pre-K for SA for the whole year, full day, with 2 hours after school even until 6 o'clock, and it only costs $1,800. So that's a starting point for our discussion. Given the additional revenue we get or not, we may be able to look at that. What we intend to do is study that and provide some models for the board, get some feedback throughout the year in hopes that we can make some decisions about what we're able to do in 2021, and through the spring of next year start to communicate and advertise and all of those things as we've done this year with Leadership Academy and Dual Language Academies to make sure that all of our 4-year-olds in this community's families know, hey, our early childhood centers are for you, all of them. So that's a BHAG, right? All right. After school programs, these slides look super busy, but Shannon Burns has assured me that she's going to do it in 2.5 minutes a slide. But this is what we want you to know. It's a problem for a working family with young children whose school day ends at 3 o'clock or 3:45 to find after school care. We know that one of the reasons some of these 4-year-olds are not in our system is because they need care till 6 o'clock. And we also know that only some of our schools qualify for the challenge program because they have to be in the city of San Antonio. So some of our schools have challenge, schools do not. We know that's been a problem for us. What would it take to have after-school programs for all of our elementary schools? The BHAG would be that would be a reality in ECISD. Shannon? Tell us the difference between challenge and something that we're exploring and be a champion.
There's a lot of differences. But the challenge program, and like Roland said, it's offered to all of our schools that are in the city limits, Salado, Highland Forest, Sinclair, and PD. It runs after school until 6 o'clock
for 159 contracted days. That runs from October through September, because it coincides with the city's fiscal year. The city funds $124,000 towards the program. The district uses about $117,000 to subcontract with the YWCA. They do all the staffing to the 1 to 25 teacher to student ratio, $10 an hour. They do the training, registration, monitoring, that sort of thing, and the remaining $6,800 for that budget goes towards supplies for each one of the campuses. The district pays for a professional facilitator at each site. We do not get reimbursed from that. The city produces a sliding scale fee based on your household size and income level. And so there's 2 tiers. You either qualify for the reduced rate of $25 a year and $15 for the second child with no additional fees for more than 2 children. Or if you don't qualify for that, you pay $260 a year for the first child and then $160 for the second child and no more after that. And then all those fees are collected through a registration process. They all get remitted back to the city. That's averaged anywhere from $33,000 to $35,000 for the last few years. So that really goes back and reduces their $124,000 investment into the program. With that, it requires a lot of data. We have a contract with several documents. We have to create a budget, a scorecard, a scope of work. We have contracts and compliance documents to submit. We have a quarterly CMR that's due. We have to give a monthly breakdown of reporting data by the month for different performance measures, such as average daily attendance, discipline referrals for those students during the regular school day, whether or not they're chronically absent from the regular school day. There's a lot of extensive data that's reported with that. And then we have an annual fiscal audit and
So, obviously, it's a huge lift on staff for what ends up being a little bit of money. Right? What you can't deny, some families pay $25 for 2 hours of after-school care for a whole year, or $15, or worst case scenario, $260 for after-school care for 159 of the school days. That's hard to replicate. But Shannon, am I right in saying that then essentially, like perfect case scenario, we could replicate that for $124,000 ourselves?
No, probably not. Because in addition to that, we're staffing the facilitators.
So plus facilitators, which is what, 8,000 apiece?
About 48
Total, so $170,000 to replicate that in 4 schools. I'm not saying we want to do that. I'm just saying, if we study how much time and effort and salary we are spending in staff that are having to do these reports to qualify to meet the requirements to get this funding, and then we look at what comes back, $33,000 to $35,000 for these nominal fees, and we kind of weigh it all out, what is the difference? Right? I mean, we need to study that, is all I'm suggesting. But as of right now, we keep challenging the schools that have challenge. Okay? But we're going to study it and see what possibilities exist. It is a tremendous lift, and it changes all the time for a little bit of money. But a great service to our community in that area of our district, those areas. All right, be a champion.
Okay. So Be a Champion is something we're already partnering with right now for the meal program at Tradition, after school program, for the high school, Heritage, Legacy, and Tradition. They do offer a full operational after-school program. We're proposing maybe to do one at Tradition, Harmony, and Oakcrest. They control all the marketing and registration online. The program cost, they would estimate, this is not set in stone, about $100 per student per month. There might be a slight discount for a second student in the family.
And they're able to offer that pricing because of the meal volume that they're serving. So the more meals that we serve district-wide could have an impact on the cost per student for the program.
Shannon, I'm sorry to stop you. I just want to clarify something. So we do use Be a Champion right now for something different than after-school care.
Correct.
Okay? Heritage, the high school, legacy and tradition feed all of their kids at the end of the school day a third meal. So the kids at those campuses can eat breakfast, lunch, and an early dinner. And the early dinner is free. Doesn't matter if you qualify for freebies, everybody gets it. We've been piloting that and growing that, and so far so good, it may end up at all of our schools. But this same company, same organization, could also run an after-school program. And that's what Shannon's talking about, is what they can do and what that would cost. Okay?
Quick question, sorry. So the champ, do they provide the snacks as well too?
For the after-school?
Yeah.
Because I know when Mr. McKay called about testing, he mentioned that snacks can be provided to the students. So is that
That's
something different? Okay.
The district provides snacks for testing.
Gotcha.
Right. Right, well, the very last thing that says snack is provided, so it could, a tradition, if they serve to some students, these kids would get served again around 4:30 in the program. So their program begins after school, and it also runs till 6 p.m. They have their staff arrive about 45 minutes before the program will begin. They have a complete monthly curriculum and all the supplies to administer that curriculum. They staff on about a 1:18 ratio. And of course, if they were to only get 20 people interested, well then it would probably be like a 1:20 ratio. But that's their goal, their target. They have a site coordinator, and for programs with only one class, that site coordinator would also be that teacher. It's at no cost to the district. The only data that we would have to provide to them would be basic student information. Okay. That's okay. And they also have a front desk person that can facilitate the dismissal of the students from the program when the parents arrive. They work with the school administrator, typically an assistant principal, but whoever we would want that person to be. And then, of course, the program design would allow for homework, tutoring, educational enrichment activities, the snack, and then physical exercise or recreation. So, kind of similar to Challenge in the way the program is designed, but of course, we wouldn't really have any involvement in having to run or manage the program, and they pretty much maintain all aspects of that. They will collaborate if there's things that the school, she says they'll kind of tailor things to the school's personality or something that maybe the administrator wants.
So again, the cost of district is in. They're able to do this for 2 reasons. One, it's part of the federal meal program. So they're getting federal dollars for the meals that they're serving. And then there's about $100 cost per month per student. You can see that that's significantly different than the $15 or $25 or $260 or $200 a year. So one possibility is to roll that out of the schools that aren't in the city, $100 a month for 2 hours of after-school care every day. If you go try to get after-school care, that's still a pretty good value. You got certified folks providing enrichment, tutoring, and all of those things. But there's also a possibility we can look at ways to supplement that if we had the revenue available. All possibilities to consider. Because our goal, the area of nation's goal, is to provide after-school care for kids, no matter which elementary school they attend.
This $100 student goes directly to that company?
Yes.
Yes.
So you know, the school district has to do with it, you know. And the challenge program, I see it, there was a cutoff at 125. Is that on some type of a first come, first served?
It is.
That's what it's okay.
So you see here, Mr. Monkey, It's allowed in Highland Forest at 125 minutes.
Yeah, that's
So
not it.
declared PB 100.
Okay, yeah, so that's your.
So I think that, so Shannon, is that something we could customize here as far as the number of students allowed?
They will enroll however many students are
No limit.
one.
No limit on that, okay.
And it's not 1 to 25, it's 1 to 18, so a little better ratio. All right. Thank you, Shannon. Dual language.
Dual language. Well, first of all, allow me to introduce myself. I am Ana Rosa Martinez, and I am
Hold
the
up.
Director for Bilingual.
Have we not introduced Alma Rosa to the
That's
board?
okay, that's
Oh my God, you can tell she's willing to do that.
So I'm very happy to be here, very pleased to be here. Wonderful colleagues that I've had and wonderful leadership. Jackie and Shannon have both been wonderful. With that said, dual language. Obviously, you all know that we have 2 campuses that are going to consolidate for dual language programs, and I am very excited about that. I come from a dual language academy, so I come with that experience of being a dual language. And not to take the attention or veer off what I'm going to speak to in reference to essential, but we inherited several students from a charter school that promised dual language, and then at the end would not follow through, so we ended up getting those students. So I've done the work, and I know that this is going to be a good move for us here in the Central. I'm excited about that. Obviously, it will be Salado and Oak Crest, where we will be working with the dual language academies. I've already had the opportunity to meet with teachers, although there was a little bit of anxiety in reference to change and move. I think they're comfortable enough to know that this is a good change. This is a good move, and of course, as we continue to work together as a team, I know that nothing but good things are going to happen. So I'm excited. In reference to that change, in the past, Central had a task force that they obviously used as a guide to be able to make the recommendations for the change of the consolidation. So this upcoming year, we're going to continue with the task force, but we're going to add another task force with the intent of one coming together all together as one, but then one focusing on elementary and that refining our dual language programs, and then the other one working with middle school and high school on the revision of our dual language programs. Existing right now at our middle school and high school, which by the way, I also already met with administrators from both middle schools and high school. We offer Spanish courses as our dual language. And for a true dual language program, 50% of our instruction needs to be Espanol, Spanish, and then English. So we're getting very creative. Another reason why I'm excited, because we're going to see how we can truly develop a 50-50% dual language program at middle school and high school. So that it's not just an program offer, we're truly following up with what we said we were going to do as a community. And some of the ideas that we've talked about is not only offering Spanish through content, which is social studies, science, math, but the possibility of maybe offering Spanish through journalism, drama, theater arts, choir. We can definitely have our kids sing in Spanish. And so we're excited about that. The administrators are on board. We're talking about what is the possibility, of course, looking at our staff, what would it take, but that will be obviously the body. This year, we're going to work on developing that idea and see where we can go with that. So pretty much that's where we stand with the task force. If anybody has any questions. And by the way, I'm also going to add that I was telling Shannon, I've been getting a lot of phone calls about pre-K dual language. A lot of parents are interested in pre-K dual language because right now at the time, it's only for L, so maybe sure. So that's another possibility.
I know.
I know. Let me tell you, first I was sweating because I was nervous, and then I was sweating because, okay, we've got this. We're on a good roll, so I'm excited. Yes, it is. Thank you.
I apologize for not introducing.
No, that's okay.
But we're gonna need you to have a little more energy.
I am so sorry, that's just me.
We hope you're excited.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bringing it to a close. Couple slides left. Hang in there. I feel like one of the other big goals that we have this year is to think about visioning work. We've gotten to where we're at through a lot of visioning work. But what I feel is that it's time to really think about this year, what are the things that we're doing well, we need to do more of? What are the things we need to do differently, stop doing entirely? What does the community, what would they love to see that we're currently not doing? And what should be our highest priorities in the next 3 to 5 years? This would be something that we would get feedback on through a process similar to processes we've used to develop a CBAS but we really think that we would go even more broadly. Like, we would really dive into what teachers think, to what students think, to what parents think, to what community partners think, or business and industry partners, as focus groups. And take the time necessary to really get feedback, bring this feedback together, and start to consolidate it and think about where are our next best steps and how much of what we're already doing is aligned to that feedback. And then inward facing, in addition to asking staff those 4 questions, we would ask, how can we better support our employees? How can ECISD better support our employees? So this is a way that you do strategic visioning. There are plenty of defined processes that are tried and true for doing that. I haven't necessarily decided on one to bring to you for consideration. But I do think that it's time for us at this point to do this work to make sure that we can affirm that the things that we're doing are tried and true in the right direction. And what else might we need to be thinking about going forward that we need to lay the groundwork for? Looking in the rearview mirror and windshield all at the same time. Right? Another big goal. This could be something that we'll be sharing with the board throughout the year, with the idea that goal setting next year is going to have a lot of good information here. And then lastly, so much of capital improvements are contingent on finance. We're at the tail end of our bond project program, and we know that the board committed $15 million out of fund balance to that work. We haven't reconciled all of that because we're not done. So we're very conservative and conscientious about any capital improvements. So what we have essentially done is we've got great replacement cycles, we've got great capital improvement plans, but we've begun to cease fire, if you will, on many of those things. Not leaving anything delinquent, not leaving anything in ill repair, but saying, for right now, we need to regroup, we need to reconcile that fund balance, we need to wait and see what happens this legislative session, knowing that we've got a commitment in board policy to have 2.5 months of operating dollars in our fund balance, which is $16.5 million. Keeping in mind, we allocated $15 million of the nearly 30 that we had in 2016 when we passed the bond, right? So we just got to make sure that we're whole, we're where we said we were going to be before we move forward with any capital improvement projects. But that being said, there's a few things that are on the radar as top priority that we're going to have to figure out over the next year. Okay? And if nothing changed, these are the areas that we got to focus on, knowing that there's some other things we're going to have to delay and regroup on. So we know that the track at the high school has some issues. We've been evaluating that. We've got recommendations all the way from it needs to be completely replaced, so we might be able to patch and limp along for another year or two. But we've got to look at that track for safety reasons. The tennis courts, we've got a similar situation that we had at Heritage around the field where we had that clay that was buckling, swelling, and contracting. So if you go to the tennis courts, the first couple are in fair or slightly less, let's say you use it. But as you get down to court 3 or 4, and you look at it, you can see that it's buckling. It's beyond repair. At some point, we have to make the investment to replace those tennis courts, and that's a pretty significant investment. At Heritage, the restrooms are probably the biggest priority. They're 20 plus years old. Primarily the floors. That's where you get that stench and urine, that old restroom kind of. We got to look at some of the partitions, and we got to look at some of the fixtures. But I think the floor is the biggest thing. It's time to take a look at those restrooms. Secondarily, the floor is the original floor. We need to look at the flooring around the school. And then thirdly, at Heritage, it's one of the few sites, I think it's the only site that doesn't have updated energy control modules. So we know with our energy Julio and our emergency management plan, that we rely on technology to control our utilization in the monitoring. So in order to make sure that we're delivering on efficient energy use at Heritage, at some point we're going to have to upgrade those energy control modules. Legacy cafeterias lighting is in bad repair. We've hesitated replacing ballast and lights, so there's some lights that are out. But the idea that we would take advantage of CPS's rebates for LED retrofits. LED retrofits have been part of our ongoing replacement cycles in our energy management program. Probably the next priority is the cafeteria at Legacy. It's about a $24,000 expense after rebate with a 3 to 5 year buyback in energy cost savings. Central office landscaping, it's aesthetic. It's a want, not a need. But I think when we go out this building and we look, we know we got issues. And we've known that for a long time. At some point, we need to do something because of the erosion and that sort of thing that's happening, because it's just not landscaped well. Of course, that's something we've been delaying for several years. But it's beginning to be a safety hazard for staff. You know, we can only grind down the uneven sidewalks so much before people begin to trip and fall, etc. Roots or these trees are ginormous. ECDC, we know that we're going to be repurposing that. It's the last phase of the renovation projects at the end of the bond program. We've had several ideas of how we're going to utilize that space. Some things have changed in some of our programs. At the last special meeting, we talked a little bit about the communications department. We had some staff turnover. We reorganized a little bit to be able to create that. Some of those job duties are not similar to the job duties of the staff that we were going to use to house in ECDC's facility. So we're currently looking at a couple of different options. Once we nail down exactly which departments we're going to have staff there, then we're going to determine if there's any additional work that needs to be done there, all being minimal anyway. But we're going to have to nail that down between now and early fall. Sewer treatment facilities at high school and Heritage, we've done a lot of work on those in recent years. At some point, they need to be completely redone. Well, right now, they both need new chlorination systems. We're permitted, we're whole, we're compliant. We need to replace those chlorination systems. And that's going to have to happen this year. And then lastly, this is not a capital, well, it's not on there, there are two things. One is security vestibules. And we'll come back to you with more information. We know that all those schools that were part of the renovations, we hardened all those vestibules, or we're rounding that out before the end of summer. But the schools that were not part of renovations, it was the board's goal to address all of those as well. We got pricing on those. We believe they're cost prohibitive because there's premium pricing based on it being utilized, it being considered a change order. Okay, so we might need to look at getting that done ourselves, but really what I'm suggesting is there's some bills on the books for some grant funding for improvement or hardening of facilities for safety and security purposes. And we might be able to draw down some state funds very shortly to be able to do that. So rather than use fund balance for that, we might just hold off a little bit, finish the construction projects, and then see where the opportunities are there. And then CNA refers to a comprehensive needs assessment. I just want you to know that we'll be undergoing a process we've always utilized, but really it's time to revisit all of our replacement schedules, create our 1, 3, and 5 year capital improvement plans for technology, which includes hardware and infrastructure, HVAC, roofs, asphalt, flooring, security cameras, access controls, athletic facilities, child nutrition, maintenance, transportation, custodial, you name it. We do all of that. I've had all of that, but in light of this reboot of finance, it's time to make sure that we're whole, we feel good about it, and that we can really lay that out for the board clearly as a look ahead based on where we really are right now. And make sure that we're really truly delivering on operational efficiency and excellence. And the board has good information to build budgets and allocate resources. I think that's it.
Do you think that some of the horticulture or, groups after the sidewalk stuff is done can come in and, do we have students that?
We do.
That would be a good project.
wood.
I know they can't do sidewalks and roofs and stuff
Are
like
you talking about
that.
like the landscape?
Like planting and stuff
Possibly.
like that. And then what about the flooring, restroom and stuff, can that be done in-house or no?
It depends on the scope of work that it's requires. As far as the landscaping goes, so everything you put in the landscape bed requires maintenance,
Yeah.
right? It requires, it may depend on shade, it may depend on irrigation, et cetera. Because we're not a campus, we don't prioritize ourselves for, I mean, obviously the grounds does a good job out here, but we just want to be thoughtful about what we plant here. This doesn't require a lot of pruning and grooming, maybe a little more zero seed. We don't have irrigation system here, so, you know, they're pretty limited on our options. But I know that a lot of times, you know, as a former high school principal, we take an area and say, hey, student council, you get this, and they plant all kinds of crazy stuff. And then the seniors graduate, thorn bushes and all kinds of stuff growing up over the top of the school, but, you know. So not saying no, but with caution, and as Judy likes to say, skepticism. Very good, right?
Well, I'm sorry I kept this longer.
Hey, Mr. Bullock, on the review.
Gotta make up that time then.
Mr. Garza. Yeah, right.
Sorry, I just want to time out. Got a quarter of time.
Okay. Good job. Lots of information tonight. I didn't see anybody shaking their head over anything that we talked about. So, you know, I think as we move forward, these are all good plans that we need to incorporate and see what we can manage within the fiscal constraints that the legislature is going to put on us. It's going to have to maybe hamper some of the things that we want to do. But some of the other things that we talked about tonight are things that we really need to do for leaders in our kids. Right? Does everybody feel comfortable with moving forward with what we've talked about this evening? Is there anything on anybody's mind that's burning that we want to add into this discussion? Because we talked a lot about we want to do this and we think we're moving that way, but we need to make sure that we remember tonight that it's goal setting before. What are our goals for the district? Now, a lot of the stuff that was talked about tonight are things that we've talked about during the year, and the staff has taken them and said, okay, you've been telling us this, and this is what we see moving forward, and there's some good stuff in there. Some good maybe plans for some additional academies. But does anybody have anything else that they really want to see incorporated into it? So when I see our the profile of the graduate, I see all those wonderful things that are on that page. And the one thing that I kind of would like to see added to it would be on the cap that the student's wearing in the middle of that. On that cap it says common sense. Because we talked about some things tonight that seem to be common sense, and I'm not sure that we're getting there. We had that as a goal objective. We had that as a board objective a couple of years ago. I don't know how you measure it. It's got to be included. It's got to be incorporated into things. But at the end of the day, if we don't have any common sense, you're walking out in front of an 18-wheeler. Now, yeah, you were right. You had the green light, but you're still smashed on the street, even though you were right. Grit factor. How do you measure the grit? Here's the grit factor. There's your BHAG, you know, the bang or bang or whatever you want to call it. Okay. So anyway, if we're good with what's been presented tonight, then we'll all shake our heads and y'all get to work and start doing what you always do real great and bring something to us. Good? Absolutely. All right. Do you have anything else for us? No, sir. Anything other than have a board meeting next Thursday evening? Yes. Okay. anything special going on in any of the schools that we need to know about over the next week?
Not over the next week, the winter sports banquet.
Yeah, winter sports banquet was last night.
Everything on the calendar, actually, there's no banquets or anything. We definitely have all the spring.
That season's coming.
You'll get it in your packet Thursday. Margaret will have all that for you, everything that you're currently aware of. But I don't know anything.
In May, we have the student month.
First week,
First
Wednesday,
Wednesday.
first Wednesday.
We'll get that to you, get that to you.
All right,
I was just gonna say, I really appreciate the format that we've had the last few years or whatever like this. This is really helpful. I know it's long, and it's long for everybody, and longer for some of you that have been here all day, I'm sure. But it's really helpful to hear the different perspectives, to hear the cheerleader start off and get us all engaged. And it's a lot of information, and so it takes a while to kind of, to work it with, but to help guide us through all of you do. And I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate it. And it's not boring or tedious or whatever that people may think board meetings are. That's probably why we don't have a lot of people coming. But it's information that we need in order to be able to make decisions, to be able to have a perspective. And I love the way that it's presented, where we can really kind of think within the box and out of the box, and the amount of information that we get so that we can articulate it in a way that represents that we're engaged in this. So I just wanted to say that. Appreciate that.
There is an NHS induction at the high school next Monday, but I think that was on the calendar.
Honor Society.
NHS induction is at the high school.
Can we get, playoffs, baseball and softball updates, I think it's about to come to an end, am I right? Season,
Not yet. Softball's closer. Baseball a little bit ahead of the season, but we get a playoff schedule, that's what we're going to do. Yes, sir.
okay. That being said, we'll entertain the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Have a motion to adjourn.
second.